Good evening. Tonight, the Board of Education will have a public hearing on the Genesee Community Charter School, February 6, 2024. The Education Law Subdivision 2857 1 and regulations of the Commission of Education 8 NYCRR Section 119.4 require the board to conduct a public hearing within 30 days of receipt of notice of an application for a new or a revised charter school. The Rochester City School District Board of Education is conducting this public hearing regarding a charter school merger for the Genesee Community Charter School located at the Rochester Museum and Science Center and Genesee Community Charter School, Flower City. This hearing aims to gather community input to provide to SUNY Charter Schools Institute, the Board of the Genesee Community Charter School at the Rochester Museum and Science Center, a charter school education corporation authorized by the New York State Board of Regents, seeks to merge with the Board of Genesee Community Charter School, Flower City, a charter school education corporation authorized by the State University of New York, such that when the merger is approved, GCSC Flower City will be surviving education corporation authorized, would be the surviving education corporation authorized by SUNY beginning in the 2024-2025 school year. A determination regarding this revision has not yet been made and is currently under review by the New York State Education Department. And I understand we have two speakers regarding this merger. The first is Colin Orr. It's Colin Orr. Mr. Orr, would you stand at the podium and speak, please? You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, President Elliott, board members, and guests. My name is Colin Orr. I'm a proud parent of 2 Genesee Community Charter School students, and I'm serving as the chairman of the Board of Trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you regarding the merger of our 2 schools under a single charter. As you may know, our flagship school has been in existence for over 20 years, while our second school is just starting or in the middle of its second year of growth. Both schools have the same mission to educate our youth through the lens of Rochester's rich history that focuses on hands-on, project-based learning. My children have learned about the indigenous culture of the Haudenosaunee people, how Rochester looked while covered by a shallow sea, and so much more through their experience at the Genesee Community Charter School. They love the connections they make through their painstakingly planned field trips they call expeditions. This merger, supported by just over approximately 150 parents, as you can see from the letters I brought here today, I plan to give you, would bring financial stability to both schools and formalize the organizational structure that will allow for ideal management of both schools. We hope you will support this merger, as it would better serve the school experience for over 300 students who live in your district. Among many reasons for the merger are the following. The merger would result in a better professional and development model to train staff on expeditionary learning, pedagogy, and curriculum. The savings afforded by the merger could lead to shared specialized staffing between the schools. The savings from the merger would support the school efforts to increase the percentage of students in subgroups that would increase the overall diversity at GCCS. More money would be available for programming such as special education and English as a second language learners. As a board member, I can say this merger would allow for board work and governance to be streamlined, to be more efficient, especially since many of our needs and initiatives for each school are the same. Right now, we are operating with 2 separate boards, which is not ideal for our volunteer members. Overall, this merger is largely supported by our operations. Although this merger is to largely support our operations, we know ultimately will benefit Rochester's youth without changing our small enrollment footprint upon the district. I sincerely hope you'll support this merger to better serve our students and organization. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Ashara Baker, I understand Ms. Baker is on Zoom. Ms. Baker?
Hey, guys. Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ashar Baker. I'm a parent of a student attending GCCS Flower City Charter School. Like many first-time parents, I spent a lot of time with my daughter trying to figure out what school she'd like to attend and what programs she could best benefit from. As you can imagine, transitioning a first-time learner post-COVID was a challenging task. This generation of children learn and interact a lot differently compared to children prior to COVID. When selecting a school, some qualities came to mind: an environment that would challenge her academically, nurture her socially, emotionally, although she had never experienced a group learning setting, having a good academic outcomes on both state and local level, and then approaching learning differently, something along the lines of project-based curriculum. When I learned of the opportunity of the new campus opening up under GCCS, I knew this would be a great fit in an environment my child could excel in. The long-standing and highly regarded GCCS charter program has been a staple in the Rochester community for over 20 years. I was excited to hear that their original campus will be replicating to provide an exceptional program to more students. There are several strength elements when it comes to the original charter that interested my family when they were replicating. Their leadership and staff truly value student feedback and character growth. Their model for community building and crew experiences showcases a unique environment that leverages purposeful curriculum and strong school culture. Their family involvement provides an opportunity for parents to work in partnership with teachers while attending field studies or participating at community circles. Parents are always welcome to assist in learning experiences. I also recognize the accountability structure under charter schools within New York State and appreciate GCCS' continuous commitment to that improvement. All these qualities, the school is deeply invested in building up students who will be responsible, collaborative, courageous, and gracious community leaders in our future community. I'm in support of GCCS merging from the original charter under the Board of Regents and operating as one cohesive charter under SUNY. Benefits of this merger would include giving the school the ability to focus on mutual outcomes and goals, freeing up expenses that could go directly back into student-driven programs and staff retention, providing a clear governance framework under one entity for evaluation, a clear financial forecast under a singular entity, as well as sharing resources and staff between both campuses, increasing the delivery of resources for L students and special education services. I thank you all for the opportunity to share my why. I'm sure that you'll find many other folks in the community who have similar whys why this merger is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. There are no other speakers, and so this public hearing is now closed.
D. Griffin, Commissioner Jacqueline D. Griffin, and it's this Tuesday, February 6, 2024. And I thank you for joining us this evening. We are going to start with the minutes, and I am head of the policy committee, and we will start with the agenda. I'm sorry.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Second?
So that was Commissioner Amy Malloy with the first motion, and President Cynthia with the second.
Yes.
Thank you.
And all in favor?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're gonna start with the policy. Okay, I'm sorry, there's no speakers for today, so we're gonna move forward and go to the policy cow meeting. And a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. That was Commissioner Malloy for the first motion and President Cynthia for the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Just a quick reminder, question and comments after the second motion, before the vote to approve.
You're absolutely right. Did anyone have any questions or comments after from the first one? Thank you. What about the second? No? Thank you.
I mess up on that too, so don't worry.
Okay. So we're gonna start with the motion we did the motion to approve minutes, so we're gonna review the NYSSBA policy recommendations.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner. So this, for January, NISBA only had one policy update, and it was a update to policy 8130.2, the workplace violence prevention. The district is in good shape with this. This is not quite applicable to us. The district did pass that policy with the same number, although we didn't use NISBA's exact version, but we did pass that policy back in December, so the district is all set with that policy.
Okay. Will that be it? Okay, thank you. And so we're gonna move forward to the Code of Conduct Committee.
Hi, good evening. So just as a quick update for commissioners, so the Code of Conduct Committee, tomorrow is the last meeting for this school year. If any commissioner is interested in attending, just let me know. But tomorrow, the committee will be ending, and then the next steps to bring forth recommendations. There is a public hearing that is scheduled so that the public know about this, anyone who's interested in signing up. The public hearing will happen on Tuesday, March the 19th at 5:30 p.m. prior to our human capital meeting. So a notice will go out at some point, but just so that the public is aware, March 19th, again at 5:30, there will be a public hearing regarding the Code of Conduct Committee. More information about how to sign up will be presented during the business meeting at the end of the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Charisma. And we're gonna move on to the new business. And we're gonna start with the Policy Development and Review Committee purpose.
So commissioners, currently, if you look at the screen, what's being recommended is what aligns with the board's practices right now. And some bullets have been combined because they were redundant. Others were removed again because it's aligning with what the board's practices are.
So Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
so with regard to recommend to board any policy additions, deletions, or changes, why was that removed?
Because it was like redundant.
Okay.
Do you see something in question, President Elliott, that we can address?
Yeah, I see
Okay.
that. Yeah, I guess that's fine. But it doesn't say recommend to the board. I'm not necessarily, arguing this per se, I'm just pointing it out, and if we're okay, and I guess I'll refer to general counsel on this, we're okay with the way in which it is stated. Because the one that's removed says recommend to the board. The other one says review and make recommendations regarding, it doesn't have the same language to me. So are we okay with that?
Ultimately, the policies have to be recommended to the board, whether it says it or not here, right? Because the policies all come through the review process here, and the board votes on them. I think Commissioner Griffin, I see her point. The first two bullets talk about review and assessments of existing policies, and recommendations ultimately follow from that if necessary. So I think not having recommend to the board there is fine, because that happens in practice, but it's a board decision.
Okay, thank you.
You okay? Okay. Do we just move on, or are we gonna motion?
motion.
It's a motion, right?
Motion. So I'll make a motion to amend the Policy Development and Review Committee purpose.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Elliott, for the first motion, and thank you, Commissioner Simmons, for the second.
So,
All in favor?
any,
Oh, no, any questions? Any questions?
questions or discussion?
Questions or discussion?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let me just say, if she says discussion, that's fine. If she says questions, that's fine. So,
Okay.
all right.
Thank you, President Elliott. So all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we're gonna motion to amend that. Okay, so we're gonna go on to board discussions.
All right. So what you have in front of your screen right now, on board docs, there's the board bylaws attachment to the actual policy, and then there's the PowerPoint that pulls out exactly what's being proposed and also for conversation tonight. So you follow along with the actual PowerPoint, it'll be easier to follow along with. So currently, the language that is written for Section 2I says that written materials to be considered by the board at a regular business meeting shall be delivered to each board member no later than 48 hours prior to the meeting. So additional language is being proposed to that section, which will add on, notwithstanding the foregoing, the board recognizes that there are instances where materials or records can only be provided in advance to the extent practical, at least 24 hours prior to the meeting, as outlined under the open meetings law. And so if the board agreed to accept this additional language, it will also change up that section. So Section 2, what will happen is that the bullet that's being proposed was originally in bullet 2I. So now it will become 2A, and all the bullets that were there before will then move down. And then the last part with this page of the PowerPoint is regards to 2J. It will change to 2K. And there is a sentence being recommended to add on that says that speakers utilizing translators, including American Sign Language, may address the board up to 6 minutes. This is including 3 minutes for the speaker and 3 minutes for up to 3 minutes for the translator. And just to acknowledge, sometimes we do have speakers who might have a translator, and giving them the opportunity to still get their 3 minutes, but also have things translated the way a speaker who is an English speaker would have. Right. I will move on to the next section. Please let me know if I need to stop. If there's any
Everybody.
questions there.
Any motions? Are we good?
Oh, we're good. Okay.
Is this you're gonna go through each point or open for discussion on any point listed here?
I can.
If you want to discuss,
I
you
just
can.
wanted to bring out Section 3A, or let me go back to the agenda. the 2300 policy 2300, I think it's 3A around the student mentor piece. Are we there yet, or am I jumping ahead? Okay, so let me know when you're there, because that's the one I want to touch on.
Okay.
Okay. So the next section on the page is section 3A. So the first one is the president shall appoint members of special committees of the board with the advice and consent of the board and representatives to organizations of which the board is a member and for which board representation is desirable or required. So board discussion is just clarity on what committees this include. That's the question that's out there.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, I'm happy the student representative is here, because I came in, I was like, it's not a board meeting. And then David, with all of his agency, was like, there's some things you guys are discussing that I want to be part of. And I'm like, okay, great. Then you can take part of this. So the mentor, I'm looking at some of the bullets and things, and I recognize that there's I forget what he's called, like a student engagement person who serves as Carl Paris, as the mentor for the student rep. And so I don't want to be duplicative in efforts, because he kind of has that. And then sitting at the Student Leadership Congress meetings from time to time, the agency that I see coming from these students is extremely powerful. And so I want to make sure that when we talk about student-led and student voice, that we are truly doing that in action. So I guess, did we get any feedback from the Student Leadership Congress? Because I do see that there's been some general ideas of what this could look like, but when I actually lean into them, it might be duplicative to what he's already receiving. Did we lean into the Student Leadership Congress as a whole?
We can though. I mean, that's a good point, Commissioner Simmons. I'm open to that.
Okay.
I'm open for anything that you would like to see that's not there that would be applicable to a student outcomes.
Yeah, because I want to make sure we definitely get student voice in something that would be potentially helpful to them or not
Right.
helpful. The other, I don't know, if this is this something that David can weigh in on the conversation since he's here, or is it just?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Have you had a chance to see this policy and share your thoughts on what your needs might be as a student?
No, I mean, I haven't. This is my first time seeing it. Honestly, I don't think there's a need for a board member to be appointed to be a mentor for the student representative. Honestly, I already have Carl Paris, who's he's the director of, I think, student engagement. And so, he's already a great person and a great resource to use. And I think that having a board member appointed to the student representative kind of dilutes my job a little bit and dilutes what a student representative can do. So I just don't really see the point. And I think it might just be, I don't know, I just don't see where it came from. So I would like to know where it came from.
So what has happened in the past is that you've had, particularly with Commissioner Powell sitting on that end, Commissioner Powell had always been next to the student, and there had been some informal kind of discussions and advice in terms of what this board does. Not so much what the student, the advisor to the Student Leadership Congress does, but about what this board is doing. And so where David may not want it, I would not agree with that we don't have it in here, because if we do have a student in the future that needs someone to talk with them about what goes on the board, they can have that connection. And so that's what this is for. It's more so for how do you interact on the board level capacity, not so much in terms of what happens on the Student Leadership Congress. So that's why I think it's valuable for us to have that, so that we can help. There are times when, because David has been around a long time, but there may be others who are new who don't know anything about this process. And
Right.
so, a board member may be able to provide some assistance in that regard.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Elliott. I'm going to go to Commissioner Santiago and then Commissioner Malloy.
I think that just to explain a little bit, David, that this has been a role that's already been happening, or it's supposed to have been happening, but this is just setting guidelines. It's just for things that you may need support in, that may not, it's not to focus on the everyday meetings of our student government. We don't want to be, over our student government, but the plan is just to be there as an extra hand of help, essentially. And what you'll see in the guidelines is it just puts guidelines to that role. Beforehand there wasn't there wasn't any guidelines. I think that this gives us some borders just to ensure that this role is being used to the capacity that it could be used towards.
Commissioner Malloy? And then
Yeah,
Commissioner
thank
Simmons.
you. Yeah, I understand what other people are saying. I think my only concern is that it brings a level of, I mean, offering practical advice to a student is one thing. My fear is that this role could become political in some way, or having that student feel obligated to align their beliefs or politics with whomever is mentoring them. I just feel that there could be a potential, not that this would happen with this board, but in the future, I'm talking about posterity's sake, I'm fearful that students could be taken advantage of in some way. Those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Commissioner Simmons, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it's not a problem with the role as much as the duplicity within the bullets here. And so my suggestion is not to say do away with it. It's more so to say, have we engaged the Student Leadership Congress who would be impacted by this? And maybe we should get some thoughts around how they could use support from the board as far as where they see help. So, because I get the point that President Elliott is definitely bringing up. It makes sense to have like that inside mentor or someone who can elevate some things that may not be coming forward. So that's where I see it happening, and I would like, if we're going to do that, that it's defined that way and the students kind of support identifying what that can look like, if that makes sense.
So I guess the question is, let me just say that Vice President LeBron is on Zoom. Just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge her. But also, the question is, has it always been a person from the Student Leadership Congress that served on the board? Or it's always been that way?
As far as
Yes.
I know, yes.
Always
yes,
been. So
yes.
is that somewhere stated that in their constitution or bylaws,
I promise.
that is the case? Because my question is, what if it's not a person from the Student Leadership Congress?
Right.
And it's just someone that,
So in our bylaws, it does state that to serve as a student representative, you do need to serve in SLC for at least 1
Say
year.
that again, start
To
over
serve as a student representative for the district or for the board, you need to be a prior service and continued service in the SLC. So yes, you do need to be part of the SLC.
you were going fast.
I'm sorry, I'll say it again. So to be a student rep, to be a student rep for the RCSD, you need to have
Be a
prior
member of the
service. Yes.
Student Leadership Congress?
Yeah, for at least 1 year and continued service
Okay.
for Student Leadership Congress. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Malloy?
And sorry to continue grilling you, David. So this is an elected position for you to the board. Who votes on this?
So in June, every student part of the SLC will have an option to vote, or also anyone can run. Well, obviously, if they follow the eligibility and stuff, but every person in the Student Leadership Congress, every student has the option to vote for whoever they see. So and people who are, for example, when I chose to run, I had to write why I want to run. I have to make sure I familiarize myself with the board and their delegation. So, I mean, I just don't see the point of having a board mentor, because I feel like it's redundant, because every person who wants to become a student rep, right, who goes to the SLC, they have that knowledge, right, and they understand the way that the board delegates themselves. They have Mr. Paris, right. I don't think it needs to be formalized, because if I did have a question, I know I can go down to anybody to get my answer. So I just don't see the point, and I do agree that it can cause kind of problems in the future, possibly, where it becomes political or a conflict of interest, right? And I kind of want to keep that autonomy for the student and keep them separate from the board as much as possible. So I don't know. I just don't see the point, and I just wish that we kind of talked first with the SLC and me, because I didn't know this existed until I looked at board docs. So I don't know. I just don't see the point.
I'd like to make a recommendation to possibly table this. Go speak to SLC. I think that's important. Truly, it should have happened before it was even presented to us as a board. We really should have already tapped into our student voice and to what they had to say about this. So my recommendation, and I'm not sure if anybody else agree, would be.
Actually, that's
Ready, is
that's
that
what
we
me
take
and
a look
Charisma was
to
just
talk with
talking
them
about,
first.
tabling it because of all the questions.
Okay.
So me and her were just talking about that. So that's what I would agree to too. So we can get more information, more insight, and I welcome anybody to what they have to say about it. They have any information, additional information, I'm all for it because we are a team. So we'll table this and come back to it. That's a great.
But that's just that section. We're not tabling the whole thing. Yeah.
That section.
And I'm sorry, I just wanted to be clear by tabling it, because it's currently in the policy, the actual language, not the exhibit, but the actual language, that means that it will stay there until you
Yes.
all decide on how to proceed.
Right. That's what we were talking about, so. It's not something that we can remove, but it's something that we can maybe adjust or, try to tweak it or whatever, but we can't remove it. Can't be,
You can vote.
we can vote to remove it, right, but it can't be, but it's still, okay, we tabled it, so let's table it and address it another time.
On the tabling, as
Yeah.
far as just saying, hey, we may table it to the next policy meeting, and in between now and the next policy meeting, the objective would be to have the conversation with Student Leadership Congress.
Right.
To just get their feedback on what
Right.
that relationship could look
Absolutely.
like, how it could be helpful, and then
Move
present it
forward.
again.
Yep, move forward. Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Chris, do you have that?
Yep, I just wanted to also bring you back to the other bullet that was before the student, the mentor for the student rep, regarding the special committees, clarity on what this is, basically trying to, you as a board figuring out if that language needs to stay in there, because currently it's not clear as to what committees includes or if this practice is being done. So that's, the question for you all to discuss.
Commissioner Roulette?
Charisma, can you possibly explain what those special committees might be, like examples of those?
The only one I can imagine right now is the Code of Conduct Committee.
So advisory committees is what I think
Right,
that this
or like the
is.
security committee as well, was that one?
Whatever the board decides that we need a committee for. So they may be ad hoc committees, which means they may be temporary, that they're not they're not standing committees. And there may be, I'm thinking that there was a committee, trying to think about the former president had around, I can't remember what it was, but he had developed that special committee. Excuse me again? Yeah, but there was another one, yeah. So those are the kinds of committees, yeah.
Like that.
Are we good?
So we're good to keep that part, okay. All right.
Yeah, we could say special ad hoc committees, or, I think that we need to put something in there with regard to, well, maybe not. I'm thinking just, timeline for it, but maybe that it is not a permanent committee is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
Something to that effect.
Can I propose that the sentence after what's currently written can say this committee is maybe like a temporary committee or a committee based on board, I want to say board vote, but board direction maybe, or something of that sense?
Yeah, General Counsel, you have some input into this. We're trying to look at the language under Section 3A for meetings of the board for special committees. I'm thinking that this should not be, these should not be permanent committees, but some
Ad hoc.
some temporary committees. And is there some language that you could recommend to be included in this that suggests that?
I heard you use the term ad hoc committees. And again, we could put some language in there just to make clear that it's referring to temporary committees as opposed to standing committees. I think it seems that's probably the only clarification it needs. And again, it says kind of shall appoint. I mean, maybe shall is too strong a word. Maybe you want to, the board could put something in there that gives more flexibility, because you're not going to need the board doesn't need a special committee, or to, the board doesn't need to appoint representatives, from special committees to every organization to which the board is a member. So I think I would soften that shall to may, and then clarify that these are temporary committees.
Okay.
So right now, I have made the change, and let me know if I need to fix it, where it says special committees, I put special committees / ad hoc committees, and then what Adrian, General Counsel Neal has suggested with the may, I've changed it to say that, and then I put a semicolon after the period, before the period that says, these are temporary committees.
We can fix the verbiage later, just to put something in there for now.
All right.
Thank you, Charisma.
Yep. All right. So the next section with 3A, so there are two sentences being proposed to be added. One, so this is regarding to resolutions and presentations. And so one sentence to be added is the president or superintendent may assign a designee to meet on their behalf. And then the other sentence recommended to be added is board members will be provided the meeting schedule prior to the meeting. Commissioner Griffin.
Yes, President, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, President Elliott.
Yes, the reason that we are recommending this language is because, you know, the superintendent and myself doesn't always have the opportunity or the time to really to go over the resolutions. And so if we each have a designee who's responsible for this, I think that will, that's the language we want to change and have in there, because we just don't always have the time to do that.
Commissioner Malloy.
It says the president or superintendent may assign a designee. This would be obviously a board designee. Okay. Do we need to put board there, or is that redundant?
We could put it in there.
Just, yeah,
You see what she's talking about, Charisma?
May assign.
assign a board.
President or superintendent may assign, well, let me just say, yeah, because the superintendent's name is in here too, so we may not, can put board in there.
Right. That would be,
Oh, to meet on their behalf. Okay. Right. I
Okay.
see. They wouldn't do that.
and then the next sentence, if you read it, says the board may designate other board members to meet with the president and superintendent of schools on a regular basis. So I think it just clarifies it. Go ahead, Commissioner Santiago, I'm sorry.
I will say that it will probably be good to put some kind of, because, and I guess this is a question for the superintendent, but let's say that you were to assign a designee, would that be somebody from your cabinet or your staff?
Yeah.
So if there's a way, and then our board or our staff, so if there's a way to explain, not like really explain that, but find a way to make that clear, because I think we have to think beyond just where we're sitting here and coming up with this consensus. I think that, you know, these bylaws move on even when we leave here. So we have to make sure that it's explained correctly, because if not, you know, the loops can be misused.
And
So based on what Commissioner Santiago just proposed, the president or superintendent may each assign a designee from their staff to meet on their behalf? Is that in alignment?
That's good, because it clarifies it.
I think just the word each probably does it.
Yeah.
Maybe each designed to, a designee to meet on their behalf, because the other part is already explicitly understood that
Right.
the superintendent would be assigning, his designee would be represented by cabinet, our designee would be presented by board.
yeah.
But that word each shows that there's a,
Commissioner Patterson.
And what I'd like to see added is maybe a time, like a 24-hour time clock or something like that, because if you're going into a meeting with if we know the schedule ahead of time, then we as board members might have something that we'd like to have included in that meeting. And then when we talk about providing the board members with the meeting minutes, you know, maybe within another 24 hours, because coming out of that meeting, you know, we'd like to know, or board members, we should know, you know, what that meeting entailed. Again, we might also want to have comments on some things that came out of that meeting. So that's the only thing that, on a more regular basis, that I like to see, and maybe it's another point of policy, maybe it's not directly here, but when there's meetings held between our district board leaders that we're advised of, what those meetings are going to entail before those meetings, and especially coming out of it, if it can be summarized, what the topics were, that were mentioned and discussed, in that meeting.
I also too do agree with the 24 hours notice for that as well. I actually thought we did that. I was just talking to Charisma, but we did it on the other one, but didn't place it in here so that we are aware within 24 hours notice that that someone else will be assisting or with that initiative or whatever we need to do at that time, if needed by the president or the superintendent. Go ahead, Commissioner Malloy.
I just wanted to agree that it would be nice to have the timing stated there, because I know it says the minutes of those planning meetings will be shared with the superintendent or shall be provided to all members of the board. I'd like to know how those will be provided and when those will be provided.
Yeah, I guess the question also is that the turnaround time
Yeah.
is 24 hours too ambitious.
Yeah, it might be.
48 hours maybe is
Right.
better.
Better. I mean, if 48 hours is great.
Yeah, it's fine.
48 hours is great. I was thinking, because you never know, you have an emergency, just 24 hours, but 48 hours is great. I agree with that.
48. 24 to 48.
Up to
24
48.
dash,
Up to 48
up to
hours.
48.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think that way everyone feels in the loop.
Yeah,
I don't want us to burden our staff.
that's right.
Because they've already got, a tremendous amount of work that they're doing. And I think that we may have to, if we do this, hopefully they will, the question becomes, what may they have to sacrifice
Right.
in order to get this done? So just want to be mindful of that if it doesn't
Absolutely.
get done, it's not because they're sitting around twirling their fingers, because we
Right.
know they're not, but something else may get in the way. So I just want us to be cognizant of that. Because we don't want to overburden our staff.
No.
And because many of us are overburdened at the work that we do, we don't want there to be an exodus of staff either. Because if they're too overburdened, they'll leave.
Right.
So we need to be mindful of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Patterson, please.
A problem with that, but we want to make sure that information is relayed. So if, for example, the 24 to 48 hours, they're not going to be able to get that report to us, that information be relayed to us with, when we are going to receive that report. Again, it's important that, all of us as board members, be advised of, the criteria, or not the criteria, but the topics of conversation that occur in that room, because it's very important that if we have input, that we address these issues immediately and not wait, a week or a month or something like that, for example. Also, are there any additional meetings the board leadership has with the superintendent? This probably should cover, do we have to add additional language? Or again, does it cover, all these meetings with the current, wording there? I guess that's one for our council. Do you want me to repeat the question? Yes. So do we have to include any additional wording when it comes to type meetings that are held between our board leadership? Or is it general? Is there something there that covers those meetings? And
I think that is up to the board. I don't know if this is designed to cover one meeting specifically or a range of meetings, or a range of preset kind of recurring meetings. I think if the board wants that level of clarification, then it's something you have to put in. As I read this, it doesn't say, it says on a regular basis. Again, that could be one meeting, that could be 5, right? So if the board wants that level of specificity, I think that's something you'd have to collectively agree on.
So, I mean, I would think that we should know on all meetings, not just, we should all be cognizant of all meetings. So we need to probably tweak that a little bit so to address all meetings.
So just a recommendation, but maybe we table this one also.
Absolutely. If everybody's in agreement, I mean, wherever there needs to be done for us to come to an agreement, that's what I want.
Is it okay?
Yes, go ahead,
Okay,
Commissioner
just
Malloy.
making
I'm
sure.
sorry.
I would agree with tabling this. I think there are many policies or policy revisions being presented here tonight that might warrant further discussion once we have a clear governance structure in place and once we have coaching for said governance structure in place. They might have some recommendations about a policy diet, for instance, or other policies that we should be considering that are more student outcome focused.
Right.
So we might have completely different conversations once that coaching begins. And I think everything that we're discussing tonight is important and perhaps should be tabled as a whole to, so that we can have those discussions with whatever coach that we land on.
But I do appreciate our interaction and discussion because it brings out a lot of questions and answers and the things that we need to do to make it better. So I appreciate that. Anybody else have any other questions on that? Oh, I'm sorry.
You're fine. I just want to. I just want to clarify. Are you guys tabling the discussion of figuring out if you want to add it to all meetings, or are you also tabling the 48 hours that you had suggested be added into the minutes to that last sentence?
Both.
Both, yes, both of them.
Okay. Thank you.
And once we figure out about the governance, what lies with that'll help us a lot too.
Actually, I think we're, are we all in agreement on the 24 to 48 hours?
Yeah, that
I
part.
mean, I don't have I set up to 48 hours.
Right.
I don't have a problem with agreeing on that, but I guess now that Commissioner Malloy has offered that maybe we want to wait until, we get some coaching or from this governance framework initiative, that we may want to wait on the language for all of that section. So that's my thinking around that.
President Elliott, I wanted to also just uplift what you said earlier about presenting more of a burden to our board staff. That's a major concern.
Right.
No, so I guess I was confused.
But I would think, though, that a lot of this would be on whoever the president is. A lot of this would, to make sure that there's information in writing about what I'm engaging in with the superintendent. And so that would be on my, or whoever the president is, to ensure that that information is provided to them.
Right.
Okay, so.
Actually, that's written somewhere. I just can't remember, to be honest with you, already. Would you recall meetings with the superintendent that, based upon that meeting, they have to report back to the remainder of the board?
You may be thinking about the superintendent's contract.
No, I'll have to look it up too, but I know it's somewhere else I read that.
Okay.
Other than just in policy here. Thank you.
Better in the meantime.
Well, we also don't want to overburden
Raised
you
my hand,
either.
but I don't know if you all saw that.
Better in the long,
Vice President LeBron, you're right.
it,
Commissioner LeBron, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. I apologize. Go ahead, please.
It's okay, and I don't have a lot to say on it. I just wanted to add that the meetings that leadership has with the superintendent was a practice that Van started. And having the meetings with the superintendent, and they would invite the VP. I attend sometimes, but technically, even through the bylaws, I'm not required to attend those. And there are times where there's information that will not transfer over into minutes because you all will hear it in an executive session. And there are confidential matters that are sometimes discussed. And sometimes there's nothing really important discussed other than here's what we're going to be meeting on today and here's where we're at, and everybody gets the same update. So I don't think there's anything that is discussed in leadership that does not make it back to the commissioners in a timely format. Typically, we meet Tuesdays. And so by Tuesday night, you'll hear whatever you need to hear, depending on what was discussed and what the situations are. I will say in the past, with other presidents, what the board has asked for was for an understanding. For example, there was one president and went and met with a group, and they relayed a message to the through the president to come back to the board with that message. We never received that message. And then there was a press conference and a press release related to this, and it was a big issue. We debated all that on the dais primarily because from that group and that organization standpoint, they did their due diligence by going to the board president to ask the board president to tell the other commissioners, and that's where that breakup and breakdown was at. So I do think from that, there was some language added around the president, if they were going and having meetings, that they report back on the outcomes of those meetings and the purpose high level. That's all.
Also, we each do monthly reports, and there is a president's report that I do, and I put information in there, but I can improve on those, on that report by putting in more of the outcomes into high level into that report, and I'll do that from now on.
I guess it's just.
Meaning that I may not, after each meeting, I may not report at that time.
Okay.
But it would be in a different report.
I guess everybody just wants to make sure everybody's getting the information in a timely fashion. I guess that's why this is written like this. And I appreciate what you're saying, because we want to know what meetings are being held so we can get the information so everybody is on the same page. I think that's what the importance of it is.
And also in the superintendent's letter to us weekly.
Right.
We have a lot of that information that's in that letter.
Right.
So it's not anything that we're necessarily keeping from anybody, but, from my perspective, I can embellish my report a little more with the outcomes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did anyone else have another question? You good? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Malloy.
I think that sometimes, and this isn't so much under your presidency at all too, but there's a fear that perhaps past presidents have had conversations with some commissioners, but then that information those conversations don't get shared with others. So I think that's just been a concern.
Yeah.
Not of you, but in the
Thank you.
past.
And I haven't done as much as I have in the past, but I'll improve upon that even more. But now at the same time, let me just also bring up this a little bit. Make sure, commissioners, that you're also responding to when we're sending you out information. So it's a two-way street.
Right.
And we just sent out something, I just sent out something the other night, and I think I may have heard from 2 commissioners. So make sure it goes both ways. If we're gonna do this, then make sure you're responding as well. All right, thank you.
I agree. Charisma?
I'm sorry, raise my hand again.
I'm
and I know that you
I'm
can't-
so sorry.
It's
And
okay,
before
I'm just gonna-
Before Commissioner LeBron speak, Commissioner, Vice President, because now let me just say this. We're being asked to do this, but when I've reached out to commissioners, there are commissioners who have intentionally not responded to me. So don't ask me to do something if the commissioners are not intentionally, when I've reached out to them, have not responded to me.
Well, we need to
Don't do
respect
that
each
to
other.
me.
Right, we need
All
to
right, I'm
respect each
sorry,
other.
Vice President.
I do agree with that, President Elliott. I do just want to remind folks that we cannot be emailing questions where we then have to answer and a decision is made. That is illegal for us to do that. So if you are sending, and I don't care who the commissioner is, if there's an email, there's also protocols that we've put in place to blind CC so that if you do reply all, it's technically only going to one and it's not going to all. But we forget there are new people that don't have that practice. So we do need to remind all commissioners about that rule. And also
Can you repeat that,
we
Commissioner
have.
LeBron? What did you just say
Say
about
that
the
again?
rule? What rule did you say, Commissioner LeBron? I just want to get clarity on it. That
It is illegal for the commissioners to send emails with questions where a decision has to be made, and then we're all responding, yes, I agree, yes, we should do that. And you get to
Okay.
4, that's a vote. All of that has to, that has to have a public, it has to be a public
Okay.
conversation. A vote has to happen on record. We
Okay.
cannot do and make decisions via email, even accidentally. And I say accidentally because sometimes people are not aware and they're like, let me just send this question out to all the commissioners. And I've seen it over the last few months. When I first joined, it was a big pet peeve of mine. So I will just remind folks, especially since we have new people, that when you send out emails, you can't be asking questions that could lead to a decision and we're all chiming in and having conversation or giving feedback. That then constitute as a topic that has to go on the dais for public conversation and a public vote. So I just want us to also be mindful that we're not breaking the law by accident. I don't think anybody's ever done it really intentionally. It's one of those rules that people sort of do tend to forget. But when we're sending out emails, we should be blind CCing the rest of the commissioners, and you simply can state everyone, all commissioners have been copied in blind CC. But to CC everybody and ask questions and then people are responding, that's where we all can get in trouble. That's all. I just want us to be mindful.
I think that Adrian wants to step in, Council.
Yeah, just a quick addition to that. I have not seen this board engage in any kind of deliberative process over email. I mean, we have a lot of steps and protocols in place to avoid just that. Commissioners are allowed to exchange information in areas of expertise or to refer a question, to staff, superintendent, or potentially to each other. But, again, there are protocols in place to avoid any kind of deliberative process or collective action or vote via email. And I think the board staff does a great job at kind of keeping those protocols in place.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Charisma?
Okay. So I just want to just because I heard a couple of different ways we're going here. I just want to, clarify what this section, and I'm talking about the entire section. Are you all looking at this point to table the entire section? Are you okay added in the highlighted yellow only and then table in what you want to do with the 24, 48-hour rule? Where are we at with that part?
Table the whole thing is what I would suggest, really,
Okay.
that whole section.
Because it's the section, so it's all included in that section, so we can table that whole 3A.
Okay.
Section 3A.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I will move on to the next piece. So 4B, the board may discuss the appointment of standing committee chairpersons each December with a view toward their being appointed during its annual organization meeting. What's being recommended is just a sentence that adds on that once elected, the committee chair shall serve for 1 year. And then the next section, each standing committee shall meet and function as a committee comprised of members of the whole board at the times indicated on the board's meeting calendar. So what's being recommended is from commissioners, is the discussion around committee of 3. The questions being proposed here is that if the board decides to go back to committee of 3, how will this change your meetings? For example, attendance by commissioners, live streaming, meeting dates, et cetera. And then also, if you all are interested in going back to committee of 3, will it be all committees that go back to committee of 3 or certain committees that do that? So that's the next part of the discussion.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes, President Elliott.
Yeah, there is we're having a discussion on that particular item, I think it's on February 6th, that we're going to discuss because, remember,
Today is February 6th.
then what date are we having the meeting? Is this
It's the 6th. It's okay.
no, because I guess what okay, all right. Well, here's the thing. My point is, my point is that because we still have not formalize the committees yet, right? We have not, we didn't do that in the organizational meeting. And so, so yeah, this is where we need to, I guess we need to discuss it so that we really can formalize and make the appointments of members of the committees and who's going to be a part of those committees, if we're going to continue to be a committee of the whole, or we're going to be, you know, a committee of three. Because we did not do this as a part of the organizational meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Malloy.
Yeah, you know, just in looking at this quickly, I'm all for moving to that model. Again, I would like to see what a governance coach would
Right.
say. I suspect they might recommend having fewer meetings. When I meet with my cohort.
State monitor?
Yes, yeah, I would suspect that. I know in the cohort for Council of Great City Schools that I'm part of, the people or fellow cohort members are always blown away at the number of meetings that we have. And just the number of meetings that our superintendent and his team must prepare for on a monthly basis. Most of those groups are only
I
meeting.
love y'all, but I hate being here every Tuesday night.
In any event, I would
love
support
y'all.
moving to this. I think how we appoint the members of those committees of three. Also, some of us, I mean, I'm one of those people that I would probably want to show up anyway, just to educate myself, and I don't know what that would look like. Does that become a quorum if suddenly a fourth person is there and I'm not one of the appointed members, but I just want to be there to educate myself? So I think I can sit there but not speak. I would want to know all the ins and outs of that, but I would support this fully.
Commissioner Simmons.
Yes, I also support less meetings and moving to a different model at some point. I do think it would be very, it would be imperative that we set up a plan and transition into that with a lot of intentionality, just to ensure we don't miss things as we make the changes. But I do think we should go towards those changes, and what that timeline looks like, we should determine.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Santiago.
I'd like to say, first of all, that I agree with Commissioner Simmons. We do have to create a plan to move towards that. I just think that there should be some that are still committees of whole and some that are three-member committees. I think our job as board members, we have, you know, three main jobs, and that is finance, to supervise the superintendent, and policy. So I believe both finance and policy should still be at whole, and then also possibly the ESA committee also being at whole, because we have to focus on our students at the same time. So my thought and my recommendation at the moment would be finance, policy, and the ESA committee to still be a committee as a whole, and allow the other ones to become three-member committees.
Oh,
And that's just an idea that I'm shooting out there.
thank you, Commissioner Santiago. I actually think, and I have to agree with Commissioner Malloy, is to wait. I'm sorry, Commissioner Patterson, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Finish.
With Commissioner Malloy and seeing what the governance model or framework would be, so that we are not double dip, you know, like doing extra work. You know, we need to figure out what that would be. And a lot of this, as we see today, is governance. You know, what the governance framework is going to look like. So, to your point, Commissioner Santiago, I'm not saying that we can't do that. I'm just saying I want to see what that framework will be for governance. Commissioner Patterson, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, myself, I'm for going back to the committee of three. I think if we're talking about building trust amongst our board members, then we have to trust the people who are chairing these areas. And if you don't know enough about those areas, then you should feel free to attend those meetings. But again, I'm for cutting back on meetings also. I said that initially. I ran on that on my campaign. I think it's a great idea that we start building trust amongst one another, and I think this is a way to lead. You know, and by having the committee chairs, again, bring back, trusting that they're going to bring back that information to the rest of the board members, you know, what was discussed, you know, in those meetings. So thank you.
I think too, I can see less meetings once we are on the right path for our children. I don't think the community would disagree with that, but they still have to see where we're going in a positive direction for us to reduce those meetings. So I think once we are on that track of success for our children and the student outcomes and empowering them again, I'm sure that they can see, well, yeah, I mean, that we're doing the right thing. We're on that right road. So I too would agree with it once we are going on that road for success for our children. Commissioner Santiago?
I have both a question for our legal counsel and then a recommendation. Are we allowed to really have this conversation and plan this out in our board retreat, or does that have to be?
Anything that really impacts district operations, I think would have to be a public discussion. So in a retreat, you can discuss maybe like process, like this is the process we'll use to come to a determination.
Yep.
But in terms of ultimate decisions, you know, you really want to have those discussions publicly.
Thank you. Commissioner LeBron, please.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to point out that, the history of how we even got to the committee of the whole was out of the recommendation of the distinguished educator to go to the original Jaime that came in. And that was a recommendation from the state that we also had to follow, right? Was to get out of committees of threes because there was decisions that were made improperly at times in there that also led to some other issues down the line. So, but one of the things with the committees of the three, I know Commissioner Malloy mentioned if a fourth member showed up, yeah, that member doesn't get to participate and doesn't get to ask questions. So all they can do is just sit there. And then the other piece was by default, the president was a member of all of the committees but chaired none. This is how it was before in the structure. The other piece is that if we were to go back to committees of threes, which I would support, let me just put that out there. I'm ready to go that route personally as well. I think the public viewing piece is the challenge because when I joined the board, I pushed for us to go live because we used to just record and then upload on YouTube. And I just didn't think the public had the ability to watch, it is different when you're going live and people can watch it and be a part of it in that moment. So we actually were ahead of the curve of many school districts, and we were going live on Facebook and utilizing our recordings on YouTube even before COVID. I just want to put that out there because we never get credit for these things, but we were. And so that comes with cost and association, right? Because there's overtime for staff. And depending on how we structure it too, we could be, I think that if we go back to it, we have to include the staff because they have to staff it. We have to have staffing for the minutes, we have to have staffing for the meeting, and we have to have staffing from the communications. And to Commissioner Simmons' point, if that's the route that we're going to go, we're going to have a plan, then I think that the plan only works if we're aligning it with the new budget year because we would have to budget that as well. We would have to figure out what the financial cost is going to be to us with restructuring right now our committees. And if any, right, we could end up figuring out a pathway where there is no additional cost. I doubt that. But I do think that if we are going to go that route and that we need time to do an analysis and that the time is now because we're in budget season and we would be voting for a new budget July 1st. But for us to make the changes now and even within this budget year, and we didn't budget for those extra expenses, I would not advise that because where are we going to get that money from unless we're doing a budget amendment? But we would still have to identify where the money's coming from.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Commissioner Patterson.
And again, this is because I've only been on 2 years. When you had the committee of three, I'm not familiar with it, but from looking at it from my perspective, I don't know what would change. Right now, we have these committee meetings. they can still be taped, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we all don't have to be here. So I don't think anything would change. And again, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Same
What
days for
I'll
these committee
say,
meetings?
yeah. So I'm not gonna correct you. I'll just add to what you're saying. When we had committees, three of three, each chair got to determine the date and time for their meeting. So when I joined the board, there was meetings Monday through Friday. It sucked. And to Commissioner Malloy's point, when I was newer, I wanted to go to all the meetings and understand everything. And so if I wasn't a part of that committee, I just used to have to sit there and listen, as did any other commissioner. Um, but staff have to record those meetings. We weren't doing those meetings live. And I don't think that we would have the capabilities to do every committee of three live. We sort of pulled the resources to do these live because we're committee of the whole. So in terms of when those meetings are scheduled, that's set by the chair. And that is one of the things that we allow the chair under their responsibilities through the bylaws to set the date and the time essentially as well. And sometimes that doesn't align. We got to Tuesdays and Thursdays, that was me too. I could pull it back on all the meetings. That was me fighting the old board members saying, having meetings Monday through Friday and not knowing what my availability is going to be for other obligations is insane. And we need to condense it for the staff sanity and for stability and continuity, even with the community, and understanding that on Tuesdays and Thursdays we meet. So we got it down to 2 days a week. And we used to hold Thursdays for work sessions, whether we needed it or not, but they were essentially allowed us who are working to block off those times and know that Tuesdays and Thursday evenings are dedicated to RCSD, and I can schedule other meetings elsewhere. Any commissioner could. But again, so there will be a cost associated with that. And we also cannot tell the chair what day of the week, and anything can happen. Like, you can have a meeting planned and you have an emergency, there's only 2 out of 3, you're not going to hold the meeting. You may have to reschedule. Things like that happen all the time. Right now, if a board member can't make it to committee of the whole, the meeting still goes on because we have quorum. So
I think you make
those
some
are all the
valid
things we
points.
need to think about as we're having, when we make the decision. Again, I will support going back to committees of the 3, but there are some logistics that we would need to figure
Right.
out. And the Commissioner Simmons and even Commissioner Santiago's points, we need a plan for that. But because there's going to be a financial portion to this, I don't think that we should implement it till July 1st with the new budget year, and that these are part of the conversations and budget as well, budget deliberations.
Well, I think overall we've got a lot of decisions to make on this. I think there's a lot of pros and cons. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Commissioner Brown. I'm sorry. I think you make some valid points, and that being said, it is being tabled. We are going to look into the governance framework. When we get that, that'll basically solidify the deal for us on which way we can go once we vote. So we'll have more tools in our box for us to make a great decision on which way we should go. So, Charisma, back over to you.
All right. The next section is section 4D. Currently, this is regarding parent reps. Currently, it says parent reps serving in an advisory capacity to committees may be appointed pursuant to board policies 1900 and 2260. It's being recommended that the change say parent and student rep serving in an advisory capacity to committees may be appointed in alignment with Exhibit 2300E3. And why the cross-reference is being changed is because the cross-reference to policy 1900 is now irrelevant, as it does not provide any additional details. However, we have an entire parent rep website that is being cross-referenced, and so if you all decide that you want to add in a student rep, the website will be added to include student reps. And so the idea would be that the committees would have one parent rep and one student rep. And then the question becomes, if the board agrees with that, which committees should have reps assigned? Currently, audit is not allowed to have a parent rep because of the nature of the work. So out of all 6 committees, audit is the only committee currently without a parent rep because of that reason.
Commissioner Malloy.
So I guess I would love to hear from our student rep to the board on this matter. I think my only concern is that we already have a student representative to the board who is speaking on behalf of our CSD students, and I wonder if that might undermine their role as a rep to the board if there are suddenly perhaps other student representatives, then it could get messy, is my only concern, but I would like to hear from our student rep on this and what the preferences might be.
Having a student rep for each committee is something that I've thought about for a long time, and which I'm excited about, because the Student Leadership Congress, while I do represent the students, I speak on behalf of them, like through them, right? I don't like make up my own viewpoints. So anything that they say, I project and I say to you guys. That's the beauty of the student rep. And the holistic part of the SLC is that my vice president, or the vice president, Hazel Roberts, she goes and does her own things, She was just at, correct me if I'm wrong, the legislative breakfast of board, Monroe County Board Association last Saturday. So she's out there doing her own things, right? But at the end of the day, while we all have personal different opinions, we all have the same opinion when it comes to the SLC and our own beliefs. So I just love the idea of having a student rep in each committee. And you might be asking, well, what does a student know about human capital and things like that? But I think it's important, right? Because when we talk about jobs and retention rate with teachers, having a student there to talk about, what their plan looks like and how we can model it around the students who are graduating and keep our students in the city and teach. So I think it's really important. I love the idea. So I'm really excited for it.
Well, David, thank you for answering my question there. It was great to see Hazel at the Monroe County School Board Conference this past Saturday, and she represented our district very well. I guess what I wonder, and this is a question to the board, would be how will those students be appointed or chosen? Are they chosen by the president? Are they chosen, is there a vote that takes place? I'd love to know more about the process.
They're chosen by the chairperson of the committee.
Can I talk about, I'm sorry, do you mind if I talk about the current process? Maybe I'll answer your question.
Yeah, thank you.
So currently for parent reps, we have an application that any interested parents or legal guardian of our district have to complete. They submit to board staff. The board staff will reach out to that chair of that committee and to review the application. And then there's like a meet and greet kind of thing with the commissioner and the parent rep, the potential parent rep. And then from that conversation is decided, if that parent rep will serve on the committee, especially because of some committees may have more time requirements than others, and so all those things are talked about, but that is currently the process that the parent rep application look like. So it doesn't have to be like from one of our like plaque or BEC per se. You just have to be, it would be nice, of course, so that way you can go back to talk to the groups that you are a part of, but you just have to be a parent or legal guardian with a child in our district.
Commissioner Santiago. Thank you, Charisma.
I think that this is a good revision. I'm glad to see that. I think that it would be great to have every student, a student and a parent on every committee, besides audit, of course, for their reasons. My recommendation, as just in thought, just to really utilize our SLC and allow them to really engage in conversation. And engage in planning. I would say that we allow that responsibility as far as the student representatives to be chosen through SLC and allow SLC to choose their own bylaw or their own, to create their own bylaws or their own process on how that happens, whether it's through president appointment or if people have to apply. We allow them to make those decisions, allow them to think about that, but I think that we apply this and we allow them to do what they would love to do. I'd love to hear your feedback on that too.
Yeah, so I was actually gonna say the same thing. I think the application process should definitely go through the SLC because we want to avoid the messiness, right, of having and I love having student voice, but the problem is that a lot of times student voice can be oversaturated. That a lot of students have different opinions or different values. But at the SLC, the great thing about it is that we're all unified. You know, we all learn together, we all grow together, so we all have the same voice together, right? So I think if the application process definitely goes through the SLC and that we have the because like I had the option to appoint my own secretary and things for my own cabinet. So definitely having that option to appoint people for different committees, right? Just like we do in the board here. I think that'll be awesome. So I'm excited, yeah.
Well, I'm excited that we've got David excited. You know,
Right.
that's-
Well, I
Say,
appreciate
I
the
was part of-
conversation. I just think that we got to make sure that we're including all kids from everywhere. We just can't just select kids from one section or one group. So that would be my concern. So good.
But I think with SLC altogether, SLC is a combined group coming together. I was part of SLC 2 years ago, which I got to give a shout out to myself and a shout out to David for being an amazing president and working. But I think it is a really good idea to allow SLC to decide that and let them do the work on that end.
Because they represent all of the schools.
And just to go back on your point, Commissioner Griffin, so the SLC, so in our new project, you know how we were trying to implement universal student government in each high school, right? The original thought process was that the president or the student body, like the elected officials in that student government, will represent their school in the SLC. However, we thought that that's just too much, right? And that doesn't equitably represent each and every person in the high school. So the SLC representative for each high school is a separate, autonomous person from their student government. So they're representing themselves, but also their school in an outside fashion. And it is open to every single person. We have an application process, but ultimately, to be a part of the SLC, you just need to have, you know, basically you just have to write why you want to be a part of SLC, and you're admitted. So it represents every single high school in a way that's, you know, equitable, and also it's not like I'm the president of my student government and I'm the president, you know, I represent my school in the student SLC. It's I'm just a regular student in my school and I want to represent my school, so I'm part of the SLC. So
Sorry. Thank you for that information. What are the numbers? I would like to know what the numbers are of SLC in every school. You know how many kids are involved to make a decision like that?
So typically, almost every single high school representative, mostly with Franklin, you know, we have East, Soda. The schools that are represented the most, it's probably a school without walls, but every school is always represented at every meeting. It's like about at least 1 to 2 members for each and every high school. However, we are aiming to have around 5 members from each high school to represent SLC. So that's around 45 students projected, hopefully by the end of this year. So.
Oh, thank you. And see, to me, 45, and we have a slew of children in this community. I would think that we would not see somebody, or may not give somebody an opportunity with just 45 children. Go ahead, Commissioner Simmons. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say there, to my understanding, there's ongoing and open recruitment for SLC, and the objective is to pull diversity of students from all the different communities. And I think it is reminiscent of what we see with even our parent groups and things of that nature. We see respectfully some of the same faces in every space in the same, and I'm like, wow, wait a minute, hold up. That is not the parent, you know, that I saw last night over here, and I wish that parent would come to the table. And the reality is that we can only, you know, is an alignment is extremely important, but also availability, things of that nature. So it's the ongoing and open, just like the parent piece. But sometimes we do end up getting just those who are able to do it.
I want to reach out to some people that we usually wouldn't routinely have. That's what I would want. I want to reach some parents to let them know, bring them in, so that they would. Yeah.
But let me just say too that we're talking about representation.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about 20,000 students being involved.
No.
So it is representation, just
Absolutely.
like it's just 7 of us.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have everybody out there that may want to be.
I don't want to narrow-minded
So
to
that
SLC.
what I'm saying to you is that that information still can get communicated with a representative of those schools, and I think and SLC does an amazing job.
I'm not knocking
representing all the
I'm
schools,
not
yeah.
knocking SLC, but I do believe that we have some kids and some parents that may want to get involved that are not a part of SLC. So this is up for discussion. This is something that we can look at further. But I do believe that we need to broaden our horizons. I don't want to just pick SLC. That's just for me, in my opinion. That's all. Go ahead, Commissioner Santiago.
I don't think that, so, well, we have to put this in the bylaws. Well, we have to put it in the law, let's say, about that process, or do we just establish this rule and allow, what's the plans as far as that?
So similar to the parent rep piece of it, it's just you all put it in the bylaws and then there will be a parent rep, and then the exhibit itself then calls out what it is. And I would recommend whatever is decided that is put in the exhibit, because exhibits can be updated as often as possible, whereas policies, as you know, takes a process. So I would say at minimum, if you all agree at least that you want a student rep, this policy will take 3 readings, so it wouldn't be implemented anyway until we're in February, April. And then maybe between now and April, you can, let, staff know like what exactly you want the student rep application to look like. Do you want it to do what David has suggested, the application be created and then SOC that, who's being, who's applying, or do you want it to be open like the parent rep to any student? So yeah, I mean, that decision.
I mean, personally, because when I was advised of this, I personally have parents that would like to be involved in it, and students. So I think that's why I think that it should be open, because I don't want to slight anybody. I wouldn't want to do that. But Commissioner Malloy, you had a question.
Yeah, I would be hesitant to, I think that the diversity in this group is really important. I think that we need to make sure it's not the same people
That's
over and
right.
over again, and
That's right.
anyone who wants to
Right.
participate should be allowed to.
Right.
But I think it would be really beneficial to have our young people in SLC creating the application process amongst their members with their advisor. I think having our staff, board staff, having to oversee that does create more work, for one, and might not be as appropriate or student-oriented as maybe we want it to be. Not that they're not capable of it, but it's more adult-focused, whereas that is a student group already established and could probably have a far further reach than other people. So I think if people are interested, they just go through SLC to apply for it instead. That's just my opinion.
So I do understand what you're saying, right? Because it's kind of, well, I won't say it's scary, but it's like 45 kids represent each of their schools, and then now they're representing in part of a committee, right? You're like, I want to broaden the scope and make sure that all kids are represented. But we do have every single like type of student representative, right? We have students with IEPs in SLC. We have students whose graduation, students are taking probably 5 to 6 years to finish high school because things have happened, and that is voice that is be able to brought up. However, the SLC isn't the only type of a student council that exists in the district. There's SALT, which is a student athletic leadership team. There was a steering committee that a bunch of students are a part of, right, who aren't part of SLC. There are multiple things that students who aren't part of the SLC can be a part of. However, when it comes to the district and the district's functioning, I think it's vital that we have students who are knowledgeable and who, because if we open up the application process to every single student, right, not all students will be, there's a disparity when it comes to what goes on in the district, right, what goes on in central office. However, our students in the SLC, they understand what goes on in central office, right? They're here, they're really present in this building when we meet, so they understand and have the knowledge to be able to make decisions. And I fully trust them in their autonomy to be able to go and be a part of these committees and be a part of that. So I think we have to trust our students, right? So I mean, let's think about it. We create our own budget priorities. We create our own bylaws, right? I wrote that, in partnership with my advisors. So, I trust my students and I trust my team. So I don't really see why not we can't have the application process go through SLC, right?
Okay, we could table this. So we
Commissioner Santiago.
No,
I think that there's a consensus here. I think that there should be at least something. There is a consensus here. There has been some people who has agreed, so I think that there should be a vote, even if there's not I think that there should be a vote on either end, because there has been a consensus in the Senate. I don't think that this is something that has to be tabled. I think this is something that we could truly decide tonight.
And what do we decide if it should say what SLC?
Just a student representative. I don't see why we have to put that on the table, truly.
And yeah, so I think it's just, again, look,
it's process.
process, but we don't need to taint things that are working well, but we can, at some point I would see there might be an expansion and what that expansion looks like over time. But it doesn't need to definitely happen right now. I
Right.
think I agree with
Right.
Commissioner Santiago.
It's something that we can talk about further down the line, but as far as right now, it's right now is what it is, and then we can we can look for other changes later. So this is fine.
So I support the consensus piece, but David, I'm sorry, that's you the chair. I think he has his hand up.
David, go ahead,
You're
I'm
good.
sorry.
Also, if I might add, so the SLC has existed since like what, 1975, and we've had like 38 unique members since then, with Sophia Gallivan serving 5 years, the longest term. I think I got her name wrong, but ever since like the SLC was in like started, the problem that we had was that nothing really like stayed put. Everything kept changing, right? And after like we losing our bylaws like in like since like the beginning of 2000s, we lost our bylaws and like no one really followed the bylaws or SLC. The SLC kind of was like, well, first it started at Wilson. It was like a Wilson thing, right? And then it kind of moved to like the city. And then it became like, okay, well, one student rep does this. Then the next year it starts all over again. The student rep tries doing this. So having that, not just autonomy, but structure, right? Where our students are part of the committees and then like, even now with our bylaws and the things we're doing with student government, that is a structure that we're building, that I'm building, right? And we're creating a blueprint for the next 5 to 6 years for SLC to follow so they can continue to build structure and continue to build up stuff. So this allows us to continue that structure and continue to like put us in the spaces where we weren't before, right? So I really do support this. And I understand your point, right? But I trust my staff. They're awesome. They're awesome kids. So I don't really see why not.
I do appreciate what you're saying. I don't want you to think that I don't, because I am a person for student voice, for children's voice. I want that to be known. What I'm saying is that right now we can pass this part and we can look into that. I'm not saying just to do away with it and it's not a possibility. But what I'm saying is that for this one part, we can move forward, just saying, okay, we can move this policy forward, and then we can look at the other later.
There may be,
So-
if I could just interject, it may not be that they need to be a part of Student Leadership Congress, but there could be some other
Right.
opportunities for
Absolutely,
more
President
kids
Elliott.
to be involved in.
Absolutely.
Because that is
Absolutely.
a workable number right there. If you get more and more people involved,
I
it's
just
going
want
to
to
be
get more people
untenable.
involved, and I think that when we
probably
when we-
some other
right,
areas. Okay.
right. That's it. Yeah.
They're doing. That's currently what they're doing. When
Yeah.
you go into the SLC meetings, you actually see them, and I was so impressed, and it's embedded in my head. I got to get to another one. They literally had the boards up, white paper, and we're talking about how to become messenger cells, for lack of other examples. Messenger cells, how to get out to the school communities and gather that greater student voice. So I think you would be pleased with that piece, and I can't wait to see that plan once they complete it.
But yeah, but I think that we should move forward though on this, and we're gonna for the section for 4D. So everybody is in agreement of the parent representative and the one student representative, correct?
Correct. It seems, yeah. The only question I'm sorry.
All right, babe, go ahead.
But I don't get the point why we have to like table that question. I mean, I don't get that point because, I mean, it seems clear to me, it seems clear to my team, right? I don't see why you're like holding off that question.
Because
get
I
it.
don't want to discourage, I need to look at. I feel personally, as in my opinion, I don't want somebody that would like to be involved that's not part of SLC
Why?
not to be. I wouldn't want to be somebody that's not involved with SLC to be affected by this. And I think that is important that we make sure that we're opening it up to everybody. Go ahead, Commissioner Santiago, and then Commissioner Patterson.
With all due respect, you're not the board. 4 of us are the board. And so if 4 of us are agreeing that the SLC should be the people who contribute this, whether it's just in the SLC body or if they decide to go outside of SLC, let the students decide how they use their voice. I think that's what has to happen. And if the board, if we have a consensus here of 4 votes saying that we agree that SLC should be over it, you're not the board by yourself. There's 4 of us here. So I hear what you're saying on your
Commissioner Santiago,
information.
I did not
If you
say that at all.
don't, I'm talking. If you don't agree, then you don't have to vote for it. But
You will not
I think that there's
disrespect
4
me
of
on
us.
the
I'm not
board,
trying to
okay?
disrespect you, but you're talking while I was talking. So I was just letting you know.
Need to respect me.
Excuse me, Commissioners. I think this is a significant policy for the board. This is the board bylaws. You're making decisions about how you govern yourself. So the discussion is significant and important. The board bylaws do require a 2/3 majority, so ultimately, the board is going to need at least 5 members to affirmatively make changes to the bylaws. The policy is going to go through multiple readings, and this, Charisma, correct me if I'm wrong, this review is just to forward it out of committee. There are going to be other opportunities for discussion and tweaks and changes, which is natural of a policy of this significance. I would just also remind the commissioners, please, the chair does get to kind of direct the meeting, so please be recognized.
Then she gets to interrupt while somebody's talking.
The chair
I
shouldn't.
have 2 minutes, right? 2, 3 minutes.
Absolutely, yep. Your own bylaws, which you're governed under, does give the opportunity for 3 minutes to speak, and that's what Robert rules and decorum call for. So if somebody's speaking, please allow them to speak. But likewise, you should be recognized by the chair if you're going to speak as well.
Where are we moving forward to?
It sounds like you all agree that the parent and student rep part is to move forward, but we still need to iron out the exhibit piece of it.
Exactly.
Meaning that we're talking about 1 parent rep and 1 student rep for committees.
Right.
That's what we're talking
Right.
about. That can move forward.
Yeah, I can move forward,
Okay.
right.
My only follow-up question to that was, did you all want it to for all, sorry, I just want to clarify to make sure we're good, that you want it for all the committees, minus audit, like all 5 committees? Like, are you okay with a parent and student rep being for all 5 committees minus
Yes.
audit? Yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
thank you, Charisma.
Yeah. So moving on to 4G. Currently, any provision of this Article D may be suspended upon a 2/3 vote of the board. So additional language was added in there that any provision of this section, including the total number and form of the standing committees, may, unless required pursuant to law, be suspended, revoked, and revised upon a 2/3 vote of the board. So an example is like audit. Audit is a committee that's required by law that would fall under when it says unless required pursuant to law.
I'm wondering though if maybe not, I could be wrong on this, but I'm wondering if there needs to be some expertise on some of the committees, like maybe finance or maybe audit, that we have a parent that has some of that expertise. I could be wrong on that, but I'm wondering if that may be something for us to consider.
That's not a bad idea.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, it is a good consideration.
Yep.
Anyone have a discussion or question on that?
All right. I will move on. So the next 3 pages, if you recall, during the December policy meeting, Commissioner Powell at the time had proposed this section, leadership resignations and recalls. Based on conversation, the board had asked that this be tabled until the meeting tonight. And so as you're looking at board docs, the section on the left-hand side is what the language was proposed during that December 5th meeting. The section on the right side has been updated, and so, yeah, this is where we're at next, to see where, you all as a board stand, if you're ready to make a decision on this section, or if it needs to be tabled further. Or if you don't want to include it at all.
Anybody have, okay. Commissioner Malloy.
So it looks like for section 5A, it just is some wording changes that we have here. So I'm wondering, it said may resign, and the prior one says may resign, or current one rather, may resign in any manner they choose, versus may resign from those roles in a manner they choose. Why the change? Or why the need to change it? Maybe I'm just not reading it correctly.
I think I have a.
Hey, Jim, I'm sorry.
Yep, if you don't mind, Commissioner. I think that tweak was to, because it also referenced the vice president, so there are 2 roles that the board or the organizational meeting gets to select, the president and vice president. I think this language was added to make clear that the resignation only applies to committee chair and to vice president. So it was just to further clarify and limit, because for to resign from those roles, because for a board member to resign, that's a whole different, a little bit of a different animal, right? So it was just to kind of further limit, put some guardrails to say, hey, if we're just talking about resigning from the committee chair or from the vice presidency.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any other clarifications?
I'm still stuck on the manner they choose language, because I don't know, shouldn't there be some form of notice? I know it's not always possible and sometimes not, you know.
Well, that's a conversation for the board, absolutely, and rules and protocols that you can agree on about what should happen and how it should happen. I'm, you know, as the attorney, I'm in full favor of there being a very formal, you know, give us much notice, like 6 months notice, right? But obviously, something might come up that might lead a board member to act, you know, more quickly or something along those lines. So that language was to give a little bit of flexibility, but I think the board can absolutely put some protocols, you know, or like, you know, maybe put it in writing or something along those lines.
About the writing, Commissioner Griffin, but I do think maybe some formal, I don't know what the language would be, but something around the notice, a timeline of notice that should be given, and then some language that does support flexibility. Because again, we might say it needs to be at least 30 days prior or 6 months prior, as he said, right? But there may be some situations where that's not possible, and, you know, I don't know what that looks like, but we should.
Well, I mean,
maybe
I'm,
look at
I'm
that.
open to, you know, if you write something down, send it to me, jot it down, we can always discuss it. That's not,
Okay.
you know,
Charisma, I'll
I'm
connect with
open.
you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm open. Commissioner Patterson, please.
Yeah, I think Commissioner, excuse me, Commissioner Simmons is correct. So I think maybe a few of us should draft that legislation and get it to you, maybe, you know, with her. If she wants to do it alone, that's fine too. And then submit it to our council and see if we can put
Please
the
do. I
fine touches
appreciate-
on it, just for time's sake.
Right, no, yep, I appreciate it. Anyone else?
Okay. So 5B was in some way combined, so 5B and C from the December 5th meeting, in some ways were combined to 5B, which the biggest change is, first off, the chair would have the 3 times during the year may be removed before the board decides, like, no, you cannot be chair anymore. I believe that's the biggest one. And then also spelling out who will become the chair. And yeah. I don't know if I'm going to add on to that more. 5B, that was your recommendation. Okay. Yeah, and then then you gave grace. That's the one you gave grace.
I have a question about this.
Yes, Commissioner Elliott.
So what does it mean, any chair so removed 3 times during the year may be removed as committee chair for the remainder of the year? What's that language based upon?
Well, because it was saying one. They only had one time and then they were done. So I didn't think that was fair. Do you think one time and then they would be removed? The original verbiage was just one occurrence. And then they would be removed for the year. I didn't think that was fair. So I mean, if you let me know what you guys think. I just think it was just one time. It said one time and you're done. You can't, bye. So I was thinking, you want just one time? This is the way it came to me.
The language has to be connected to what the abuse of authority or failure is.
Okay.
And I guess I'm a little,
Charisma, can we get where's the original piece that we have for this?
So the left-hand column shows what the original language was, which why it was split into B and C, because now the proposed language on the right-hand corner is somewhat combining the old language, but also added on additional information. So that was what was showed in
Counsel?
December.
Right.
yeah, that's the bottom line. It can't be three, well, just from my perspective.
Okay.
Doesn't seem that it could be there, if they've abused power, then they need to be removed, you know? So, I
mean,
mean,
this
no
is-
3 times,
Okay.
that's just my
Okay.
thoughts, though.
No, I respect that, President Elliott. Commissioner Malloy.
Yeah, thank you. So when I'm looking at this, it also is very much related to what we were talking about before in, I believe, 4B. The board may discuss the appointment of standing committee chairpersons each December with a view towards their being appointed during its annual organization meeting. And I think we all agreed on the new language. The board
Right.
may discuss the appointee of standing committee chairpersons each December with a view toward their being appointed during its annual organization meeting.
Right.
So we have that already in our bylaws, and what I'm wondering is if in section 4B, if that language could encompass some of that other, because we already have a provision for this. And if perhaps we could say, in section 4B, where it says the board may discuss the appointment of standing committee chairpersons each December with a view toward their being appointed or replaced during its annual organization meeting. I don't know. I thought that that might encompass more, just because we have an annual process for doing this anyway, and that should be like perhaps a conversation that we have with our board president, or if necessary, in executive session. I find the other one in 5, I don't remember the lettering now, 5A, no, I'm sorry, 5B. I find it to be really wordy, so if we did go, I would, the other one was a question that I just said regarding
Right,
4C. But if we did go with this policy, I would recommend either just the original proposed language versus the wordier language.
Because it was combined. two
Yeah,
things
I don't want this
Yeah,
to
we-
become
Yeah.
a distraction from our student outcome-based governance. And I think we need some, perhaps, recommendations from a coach
Yeah.
as well on the type of wording that we employ.
I'm sorry, Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, thank you. It's okay, but I was waiting to jump in. I'm going to support the original language. I think that we do need clarity. I'm not supporting 3 times. There have been incidences with board members that have put us in extraordinary circumstances, difficult circumstances, which is part of what has led to us even having language defined as the fact that if someone does something that is not just abusing of power, is unethical, we, mistrust, whatever the case may be, that we have an avenue for removal, and that's what the language is literally there to just give us the pathway of how to remove. I would not support it being added to another section. I definitely think it does need to be clear that this is the path for removal, because we've had to remove, but we had to do it all inadvertently and backwards, and it cost us money, cost us time as well. And when we have to stop to do those things, we're not focused on the work at all. It's a distraction. And unfortunately, we've had board members put us in those circumstances. So I will tell you all, if you think that you're not, you could be the very person in the future that does put us in that, including myself. Who knows? You never know. So there has to be a clear and clean avenue for removal of a chair. And no, it can't be the annual meeting, because by default, we're not required to have this a different chair for each seat. If we come around next year and we feel like so-and-so is not fit to serve as the chair, we can appoint one commissioner to have 2 committees. And we've done it. I've done it. I had to do it. So I just want to point that out, that for the annual meeting, the purpose is to either reappoint leadership or appoint leadership, but there is no removal because we don't have to appoint in that moment. We can just say, this commissioner is going to have two commissioners and two committees, and this one will have none. So I do think we have to keep it separate, and it has to be clean and clear and easily understood by anybody who reads it and picks it up, that this is the path for removal from a chair. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Commissioner Santiago?
Yeah, just wanted to say that my support is with the original language also. It's pretty understandable. It's right to the point, and I agree with the original bylaw.
And I agree with I echo the sentiments expressed.
Yeah. Okay. All agree?
Can,
Go, Commissioner Malloy?
My question is, what impact will this have, if any, if we go to the body of 3 that we have suggested for different committees? What impact does that have, if any? I would love more guidance on that.
Do we know what impact it would have?
Some of the language in this section is, and that's why some of the additional language was put in there. So there is essentially a different procedure if it's happening at a committee of the whole versus something that took place at one of the standing committees. These committees of 3. If the board is voting to either get rid of a committee or for removal of a chair, I think you require 2/3 a vote of the board for it to happen. So it would only happen, only be feasible at at a meeting at which essentially almost the entire board was here. And just a point of clarification, for me, I hear a lot of reference to the original language, but the beginning says remove for a single meeting, right? So there's a nuance there. There is what I recall of the original was removal for a single meeting. It was not removal for the entirety of the year. That removal for the entirety of the year upon the 3 instances was added later on. So there are 2 things that are happening in that paragraph.
So one is for 5B is for a year. Well, the remainder, it doesn't matter. It's just, remainder of the year, yes. They want to say from a meeting.
The first sentence says remove from the committee chair for a single meeting due to abuse of authority. That was the original language. Again, the removal for the entirety of the year came afterwards.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So my
Commissioner
question for 5C, it says in extraordinary circumstances, et cetera, but it said for failure, abuse of authority or failure to maintain order. Would that be failure to follow Robert's rules? What is that failure to maintain order? If people start arguing, is that failing to maintain order? If people are jumping in and they're not controlling the meeting, what is meant by failure to maintain order?
Well, that's a great point, Commissioner, and that's why the language of, if this goes forward, that language will be very important. I think that the recommendation I put in there was in accordance with the explicit decisions of the majority, right? So because failure to maintain order is subjective.
You're right.
Right, and so I try to make it more objective, which is failure to act in accordance with the explicit directions of the majority. And there is a process to get that if there's a disagreement with the board chair, right? We've gone through the appeal process a couple times as afforded by Robert's rules. So for example, if there was an appeal and the board signaled their wishes and then the chair ignored that, then I think that is more reasonable to say, okay, the chair is not acting in accordance with the expressed will of the majority, but failure to maintain order, that could become very subjective, but you act as a body. So at least in order to act under this proposal, you would need essentially a 2/3 vote of the board to act on any kind of removal anyway.
Okay.
Thank you, Adrian. Anybody else have a question?
I'd love to clean up the language.
Yeah,
a bit more.
I think we can clean this up. Can we table this so we can go back to clean it up a little bit and bring it back? Everybody in agreement with that? Thank you, guys.
And then the last bullet for this section, well, this entire, the policy. So as of right now, 5D that was proposed during the December 5th meeting would have became 5C if you all were agreeing with the language changes in the previous page. I don't believe there was any changes between the two, minus other than just the section numbers changing from 5D to 5C. But it sounds like this entire section, leadership resignation recalls, based on the previous 2 pages, are looking to be tabled until the next policy committee meeting. Right.
It's all part of, it's one of the same.
I think that we have to look at what this looks like if it's a committee of 3.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
That's what you're
Yeah,
saying?
Yeah, that's what we said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you went out on that, but yeah, that's
Oh,
what we're
okay,
saying.
okay,
That we
all
need to make sure that we look at the committee of 3 and the committee of the whole, because how is it gonna affect us? That's what we said that, that's why we're
Okay.
gonna table it. Good point, President Elliott.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Because I think, weren't these authored by Commissioner Powell? Okay.
So we're gonna make a motion for the board bylaws. To be tabled, to be forwarded, not tabled. Amy.
What are we voting on?
The policy process that we,
Right.
this is our first reading iteration
Right.
of it, right?
Right.
No, not yet?
Nope. Once you forward it out, then the readings will start. But so I'll update the document in board docs that reflects the changes, because there are some sections that you all had tabled.
Right.
And so I will make sure when it's updated that I remove those pieces that you're tabling until the next time. So whatever you motion out now will only reflect what you all agreed that you're okay with moving forward with. But then the first reading would happen at the business meeting this month.
But then we were also talking about maybe having whoever the vendor was to give us some guidance on
Right, the
this as well,
governance,
right?
yeah,
So how
goes.
does that impact, and if when will we,
I said March,
when will
right?
we make the decision on the the vendor, and when will they start? Because I think all of that
I think that's
sort of
March,
plays
right? Is it the 5th, March? I think I see something about March.
Yeah, I believe it is.
of the readings, and it's 3 months for the readings starting.
There are 3 months, but the parts that you all table because of that, I can pull out to table with it. So the only pieces that would be in here is everything else. So whatever you table whether because of the governance model or because you all need to have further discussion or whatever the reasoning was, I'll make sure to pull those pieces out. And only thing that would get forwarded are the pieces that you all had agreed upon. And of course, when it comes to the first reading, if I made a mistake and, didn't pull out the right thing or should have left something in, just, let me know and I will fix it so that way by the second reading, it's correct.
we're gonna motion for policy 2300 to be forwarded.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. That's a motion by Commissioner Malloy and Commissioner Elliott. President Elliott, sorry.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Any discussion?
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Okay.
Thank you.
I had to learn to. Like I
I know.
said, I had to learn to. Still learning.
And, right. So we are on to unfinished business.
The
Multiple
multi-policy,
policy
the multi-policy.
presentations.
This should go a little quicker, hopefully.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So we have our multi-policy presentation. So policies 2410, 9260, and then schools part 1, which is including this 4200 through 4204, and 4207 through 4208, which are all some of our special education policies. And so this is the first official meeting where we're following a new policy process, which we're currently at step number 6. So the policy chair person, general counsel, chief of staff, chief of special education, the special education department, myself, and then BEC were the individuals who contributed to the policies. And just to clarify, all policies in the schools, part 1 was sent to all our advisory groups, but BEC was the only advisory group who had provided feedback for the policies, which is why they're the only ones who were named. So we will be following policy 2410 to continue in the policy process. And so for schools part 1, policy 4200, 4203, 4204, and 4208 has no significant updates. Policy 4201, there are some updates under parent participation in meetings to align with state's regulation. Policy 4202 also was updated based on state regulation to change from 21 years old to 22 years old when defining a child with disability. And then policy 4207, per regulation, policy language was added on CSE membership for L students with disabilities. And then with 2410, so the readings were updated to align with board practices so that if anyone, a community member or parent was to pick up the policy, they would know okay, if I'm looking for a policy, where can I find it at in the readings, or what meeting would it be at? And then for policy 9260, you all have voted on an updated resolution back in September regarding fast track hiring, which is supposed to expire September 2024. And so this policy will start the conversation so that, when that resolution does expire, that there's something in place to continue the practice instead of the board having to, keep voting on the resolution. Next step, so once the policies are forwarded out of this committee, they will begin following policy 2410 with the readings to be voted on by April's business meeting. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay.
Is it a motion to move out of policy?
All right.
Got some patient issues.
So we're gonna go do the motions for each one of the policies. So we're gonna start with policy 2300. I mean, sorry, 2410, I got it marked right here, sorry, 2410. We got a motion to, approve.
Commissioner Santiago, you motion?
Motion.
Oh, Commissioner Patterson,
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Patterson, can I have a second?
second. Oh,
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Any opposed?
discussion.
Discussion, sorry, now I'm going right to oppose. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? No, so you got to say if there are any opposed.
I'm sorry, President.
If there are any opposed,
I just said, I said it out of turn, so I say it again. Is there any opposed?
there you go.
Okay, thank you, President Elliott. And then we have a motion, for 4,200 and 4,201,
So moved?
and that's Commissioner, Lloyd. Anyone second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. 4202.
No. Any discussion?
Oh, sorry, guys, sorry. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're gonna get this. Okay, and then I have, 4202, sorry, 4202. Have a motion? Motion. We have a
Second?
motion by, Commissioner Simmons and Commissioner Malloy. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we have 40, can I group these? We can't group these, right? We just have to go through each one?
But you know what I do.
Like that.
You know what I do.
4203 and 4204. Motion,
So moved.
thank you. That's Commissioner Malloy and Commissioner Simmons. Thank you. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Then we have, motion 4207.
So moved.
4204.
All in favor?
No, any discussion?
Any discussion? Sorry, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4207. Oh, I'm sorry, Amy Malloy, Commissioner Malloy, I'm sorry, and Commissioner. Okay, Commissioner Simmons, right? Oh, thank you so much, and,
Or did you
last, the
motion it?
motion 4208.
Motion.
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson and Commissioner Malloy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm an aye too.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. And then we have the last one, I'm sorry, guys, and it's, motion 9260,
Motion.
and that's, from, Commissioner Patterson and Commissioner, Simmons, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't think that we have any unfinished business.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Kirsten, I just want to make sure, did we get 4201 as well?
Yes.
Okay.
4201 or 4210?
Surveys.
The survey?
Yeah, tell them to.
And we got, the survey, please don't forget to complete the survey. And we have, requesting to have the meeting adjourned.
Motion.
Thank you. And that's by everybody, right?
Is there any discussion?
Any discussion?
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
No, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Great job.
I don't see the survey
Great
thing.
job
It's
today.
gonna go down in history.
You did a great job. That's
Thank
awesome.
you, Carissa.
You did a
Thank
great
you,
job.
everybody.
All right,
Great
first
discussion.
meeting. Told you we weren't gonna let you fail. We got you.
Always been on mute.
That's nice. Seriously, she was like, hello.
You probably need to give people some break.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CIGR Committee of the Whole meeting. Today we have no speakers, so I'll start off our meeting with a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was January 9th, 2024. Can I get a
So
motion?
moved.
Motion by Commissioner Malloy and Commissioner Simmons. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor?
I love that.
Any
hand.
opposed? All right, seeing none, the minutes from last meeting has passed. So basically, this meeting is just to look at our legislative agenda and to pass it. I'll at least give you guys an update between now and last time. I've been able to conduct a few meetings with some of our groups. One of those groups being SLC. I was able to present the draft proposed budget, proposed legislative priorities. I believe it was last week. Was it last week? And I was able to get some feedback from them. So this draft is also including our students' feedback. And we've also had some more conversations to ensure that that the ask on our legislative priorities are things that are factual and actionable in a sense. So the only things that have really changed, we do have one new priority, and that's our CTE. That's the only new addition. There has been some changing in wording between now and last time. Again, to make these ask one more reflective on our board priorities, but then also to ensure that these asks are things that are specific to our district. So do we have any conversation on the legislative priorities draft? I'll come down the line, so we'll go Commissioner Malloy, Commissioner Simmons, then President Elliott.
Yeah, I love the addition of the CTE. I know at the Monroe County School Board Association, this was something discussed countywide, so it's not something that necessarily just impacts our district, but also those districts that contract with BOCES, which is everyone else. So I'm glad to see it on as an addition to our priorities. Thank you.
Commissioner Simmons?
Yes, I too. I'm really excited about CTE. I think that's something we have to certainly advocate for. We look at how skilled trades are going in the United States and how it's impacting student learning in school districts, specifically Rochester. But also, and I recognize that ELA was put up under foundation aid, and I definitely see the language. Just as long as, for me, the position is as long as it's explicitly calling out the lack of funding that we're receiving for instructional materials as well as, or strategies, what have you, and the, what's the other piece that's covering? The higher education piece, like $10 million is not even a puddle. It's not enough. So I definitely want to see that we explicitly call that out and request more funding.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. President Elliott?
So just before I ask my question, what I wanted just to recommend to my colleagues is that they listen to the testimonies of those who went to Albany. And I mean, what I'm talking about is all of the testimonies from the Big Five school districts, from NYSIT, from Commissioner Rosa. Just listen to those conversations. I'm still going through some of them, but I think it'll give us an idea of where, from the education community, that we're going in. So I would recommend that you read all of those testimonies. And then my question is, Chairman Santiago, with regard to, and maybe David could answer this, because I wanted to know what input did SCL provide for the legislative agenda?
Absolutely. I'll allow David to touch on it, but also I do want to reiterate one of the strong supports, and this is also to Commissioner Malloy's and Commissioner Simmons' point. One of their strongest priorities that they supported was the CTE. They were happy to see the CTE on there. Then also they would like us to have more conversations on how do we expand that, not only just in construction, in carpentry, but how do we start touching into computer science? How do we start touching into some more things that our young people are interested in? But I'll allow David to speak.
Yeah, so we did touch on CT a lot because to my knowledge, to knowledge of all the students, CT is offered is offered in every high school. It doesn't just look like what it does in Edison, right? For example, my school, our CT is also dual enrollment. We have business classes that are dual enrollment, and that counts as a CT as well, right? A teacher is labeled as a CTE teacher. But a lot of people don't know that, so we want to expand that CT isn't just like carpentry or construction, but it's also more things like that. But I did want to add that when you did leave, Isaiah, we did talk, because we were drafting also our own budget priorities to present. We did kind of talk about how, the charter schools and things like that. However, you wanted to address the fact that we didn't see students with disabilities kind of mentioned in the priorities, and we kind of feel like because they have a huge population in our district, and that because they need a certain amount of funds, that we do have a priority where we ask our legislators to increase funding for our students with disabilities and IEPs, because we do feel like they need the support, as well as also our teachers who are teaching our students with disabilities and IEPs. So, thank you.
So I'm gonna come down the line. Commissioner Griffin, did you raise your hand? I'll go to you first, and then we'll come down the line.
Okay, I'm just questioning the English language learners, and I'm just in the funding for reading. Is that in here? We got the teacher shortage. Are we doing reading teachers? My biggest thing is that we don't have reading teachers, and we have this funding coming, and I want to know it's back to the basics with Kathy Hochul. But I don't see where we're focusing in on the shortcomings of our reading and our literacy in here. Is that something that I'm missing, or is it something that you can explain for me further? Because I don't see it in here.
I just literally brought up that point, the back to basics, and that 10 million is not enough. But for as far as legislative priorities, that's not what they would do. We as a district, that's a different piece as far as how we explicitly utilize that funding. Because she's saying, she'll give dollars towards higher education, reading instruction, but it's up to us to do what you're saying as far as making sure we have literacy pieces brought systemically in, but that wouldn't happen. This is like state legislation.
Okay, but even at the state level, there's no fundings going into the reading at all? It's just all
$1 million
coming-
what she allocated, and that's what I'm saying, that's not enough.
Okay, you're saying it's not, okay. So, go ahead.
I would like to just jump in here. The $10 million that the governor has identified is to go to NYSET, the New York State Teachers Union, right, to
Right.
provide training. So those are dollars that we will not see on the school level for the science of reading instruction and the science of reading that has to happen.
Okay, and then my other concern is, we're talking about the money for the asylum seekers. I want to make sure that we understand, and I just want to throw this out here. I happened to visit a school today, and I was disturbed by something that they told me in reference to our transportation for getting kids into a school because they're living in a hotel in Henrietta. So I want to make certain that people know that there are kids that need to get to school and they can't get to school because of the lack thereof. So I want to make sure, is anything here governing the kids that we have here that are now without transportation, that are, that can't get to school? Has anything, so we have a lot of problems here right now. So I want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our children in this city. I understand people are coming in, but I do understand that we have the city council that's working on things. We have the legislation. I believe that we need to let them do their part and we do our part when they come here. So I want to make sure that we are addressing the needs of our kids in this city and making sure that we are governing them the way we should. And I know people are coming in from the asylum, but what about the kids here in the city that can't get to school right now, that are struggling to get transportation from Henrietta to here, and that are homeless and living in hotels? So I just want to address that.
Say this, I would say that that's not the conversation for this meeting, but that may be something that you can talk directly to the superintendent about, or through our process. But this is, what you need to do then is to, how does that go into the priorities that we have for our legislative agenda?
President Ellie, that's my concern.
Okay.
This is talking about money, so I'm trying to figure out where in this are we addressing that with your proposal?
Yeah. So there's some conversation about transportation on the last page, so you could check that out. That's one of them. And so the other questions, please do speak to the superintendent and the president about. But regarding this legislative priorities, we do touch on transportation in the second page.
Right, and this is an item that I have been fighting for. I've been championing this probably since 2007, that we are reimbursed at a 0.5 reimbursement level as opposed to a 1.5 reimbursement level. And so I just wanted to give some understanding of what this one is about. Now, in terms of that, your specific question about a parent issue, that's something that has to be addressed through the district.
It's not so much it's just across the board that we have people that children, because they don't have the transportation to get to school. It's not even a parent issue, it's a homeless issue. So they're homeless or they're living in hotels. And we have a lot of people from the asylum living in hotels as well. So I just want to make sure that we are doing what we can do to address the needs in our community of the kids that are living here currently that are displaced. And we're not putting money into people. And I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm saying is I just want to make sure we're taking care of our people in our own backyard. When we talk about giving out the monies to the people that's coming into our city, when we have City Hall, we have the legislation branch, we have all these other different branches that are governing money to the people that is coming in from the asylum.
That's another conversation.
Yeah,
So-
that's my concern.
So I'll say, we can have that conversation because that's an inside conversation. These legislative priorities is what we're advocating for, things that we cannot personally control. So the conversation about transportation, even for students, that homeless students, that's something that we can advocate for in our seats. But this is for this, advocating for things that's outside of our control, outside of our body. Go ahead.
So, and I can't remember what I was supposed to raise my hand for originally for, but what I would say to you, Commissioner Griffin, is that as you begin to think about these issues that are in our community, look at how you can formulate them into a policy so that we can lobby for it on the state level. Because part of the issue is too, and the superintendent can speak to this, is that, we have bus shortages, not bus shortages, bus driver shortages. There's a whole lot of things going on that I'm very certain that the superintendent and his staff are trying to work on diligently. But, when people are taking time off, then there's substitute bus drivers. My family member was just impacted by that. So there are a lot of different things. But what I would say to you, if that's an issue, let's see how we can formulate that for the next year's legislative priorities, if that's something that we need to be talking about on the state level. Okay.
I want to make sure that we know we have drivers issues and with everything, but when I keep hearing, I know that people are coming in droves and they need help as well. But when I look at the back door and I see the people need help here, I'm just trying to figure out how did the people coming in off of the buses go before the kids that are already in our backyard. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, somebody may call you about a quote about that. That may get you in trouble.
Well, I'm going to speak now because I know I was next to go, and then it ping-ponged around, and it's not until I get on my bully that you then hear my voice. So now I'm on my bully, and I'm going to speak, okay? But what I wanted to say is I agree with President Elliott's piece, because it was very informative to watch some of the state conversation and see what different districts, our district, I got to see Superintendent Peluso, and I was on a Zoom actually with state representative senator at that time and someone from our education department just kind of talking about the literacy piece. And so I do want to, I know we have lobby days and things that we work around with our families, and I would love to see us really pull our community in around our legislative priorities and make sure that we are elevating voices on a level that can be much more impactful. Because I think we visit these agendas sometimes and then they fall flat afterwards. It's almost symbolic. So I think under your leadership, Commissioner Santiago, we may be able to take it to another space.
Absolutely, and the plan is soon to bring this conversation up to the board in one of our committee meetings to speak about what can we do different moving forward when it comes to this conversation. I do also want to clarify something. We do bus homeless students, but I'll allow the superintendent to really touch on that.
No, so I just wanted to look at, like, from a legislative priority, yes, transportation is an area that we're having difficulty. And recently, there was a waiver that Governor Kathy Hochul did in January for school buses to release the under the hood component for drivers to be to get their licensing to drive buses, right? Those are things from a legislative agenda, like those could be priorities that we could address and then get, so that we're able to get more drivers, make it easier so that we are able to service all kids and all families, right? Once a student, I just want to put this out, an asylum seeker, once they come in and register, they're our student, right? So they're no different than a student that is anywhere in the district. And so we have to begin to provide transportation and we begin to do it. But when we have homeless families, McKinney-Vento family in transitions, and they go, it does stress our transportation system to make sure that we're getting everyone to school where we can. But absolutely.
So we got to do it for everybody.
Okay. So we'll continue having conversations about our legislative priorities. Did you have any comments, Commissioner Patterson?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to commend David on coming up with student with disabilities and highlight that. I just want to highlight a few things. So I appreciate you mentioning that. So that's one of the things I think should also be included in this legislative priority. And just highlighting a few things, again, which some of my colleagues have already done, the Career Technical and Education CTE portion, positive school climate, that's very important as far as school safety, and making our classrooms conducive to learning. The social and emotional health and mental services portion, I think that's wonderful that that's a priority. Let's see, and the technology. Again, very important priority that we bring our students into the next decade or century. A few things I like to address, though, are the charter schools. We have the urban and suburban program, and I don't think charter schools should be a priority. We talk about money, but that's money well spent. If those students are in charter schools and are happy, their families are happy with them being there, I've always said that we should compete here in the district. And for me, when you talk about bringing dollars back, wherever those students are happy, wherever their parents are, have those kids, they're happy, that's money well spent for me. So that for me personally, establishing a moratorium and limit charter schools expansion, I've been quite transparent on this, that we live in a democratic society, and the parents have the option. If we're not doing our job here well at the public school system, you give them options. Yes, do we want to draw them back? Absolutely. We'd love to start doing things here in the district that's going to draw students back to the district. But at the same time, it's like Whole Foods and Wegmans. They have to compete against one another, and that means lowering their prices. So we have to compete against these charter schools. I'm okay with competition, and I hope that we can bring some back. But again, that's my point on that. And I want to address the ELL portion here. My question is that I thought of while we're sitting down here, how do we provide education for the non-English speaking students? So all these individuals that are coming in from different areas of the world, what is our plan? Do we have a plan, to teach these individuals? I know a lot of people from the community, or a few, I should say, are coming in, but they don't have the certification to be teaching our students, and they are volunteering, and we appreciate that, people coming in from the community and volunteering. But we, as a district, need to come up with a solid plan, for teaching these immigrants. So, thank you.
Student Representative David.
Before I go into my piece, I kind of wanted to comment on Patterson's piece as well. So I'll just first talk with the ELL stuff. So I think there is a plan. I mean, I was a former ELL kid, and from the way it worked was, you went in, right? You had there's mediations, and you had intervention. You had like 3 different teachers just to you, and you got a reading teacher. You read with this teacher. There was an extra 2 hours of just intensive reading, which which for ELL kids is great, but also if you notice that a lot of the ELL kids who graduated from that program, their English language skills, they actually test higher than the kids who like kids who are maybe like who are born here in America, right, or who went through like who didn't go through the ELL program, and like I think that even if the kids who don't graduate, like there's still like stuff during high school that they can go through, and like there's like tests and benchmarks. So I think there is like a plan. There is a plan rather, but also I want to add on that when we talk about immigrant families and ELL students, that we also when we talk about support services, that we include like computer literacy and things like that for not just the student but the families. You know, I was born in America, but I was raised in Turkey for a couple of years, and then I moved back over here. So I was like, you know, labeled an ELL kid. But my mom, she was born in Turkey, right? So when coming to America, she didn't really understand the way like to navigate technology and things like that. And having that tool for our parents who are immigrants to have that tool also like, because they also have voice, right? So to teach them how to use technology and to get them involved as well, I think is awesome. So I know that falls under support services, but just to expand on that a little bit more. And with charter schools, the problem is that it's not a fair game with charter schools. It really isn't, because their enrollment is much different from ours. If you look at their disability enrollment at kids with IEPs, it's much lower than ours. They say they reflect our students, but they really don't when it comes to the numbers of students with IEPs, and especially students with disabilities. A lot of times what happens is those kids with IEPs go into charter schools, they get expelled, and where do they come back? Right to the district. And while those dollars do follow them, the trade-off is that kids come in and that, they're probably like in 6th grade and they come back and now they're in 8th grade, and like they come back from a charter school perspective, and it kind of just throws things off for them. So it's like an uphill battle with charter schools, right? And I mean, we all know charter schools open up and close, so like, and where does that leave the parents, right? And you can go on a lot of charter schools like websites, and like the biggest one in the city right now, you can go on their website and there's no like talk about their curriculum or what they're offering. All they say is like, here's what, and I'm gonna be honest, we do educate our kids very well. We have great programs, and we just don't talk about it enough because there's so much other stuff that's oversaturated. But we have great programs. We offer, like, no one talks about the virtual academy enough. Like, Italy allows every single high school to have AP classes and dual enrollment in every single high school. And I don't see any charter school offering that, right? I don't see any suburban schools offering that. And when we had the Rock to Change Summit, which invites suburban kids to the city, and like we were talking about our programs that we offer in the city, and they're like literally blown away because all they hear about is the negative, but there's so much positive in the city. So just to add on that, but I did want to go back and add on to the, I just love how there's like as a city, we loved how there is social emotional health. We love how there is social emotional health, and we talked a lot about charter schools as well, but also teacher staff and shortage. I feel like as a district, we really have to kind of focus, or as in like a priority, as a legislative priority, we have to really focus on expanding the accelerated programs, and like kind of like tell our students more about that. Because like at Brockport, like, instead of going for 6 years, get your master's in education, go for 4. So things like that are really great. So I'm glad that we talk about teacher staff shortage and things like that. But yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, David. So all of our board members want to speak. Just wait until I call you. We'll start off with Commissioner Simmons.
Oh, okay.
You raise your hand first.
Okay.
We're going by order, that's all.
Great. Problem. Thank you. No, I wanted to just touch on the charter school conversation. I absolutely believe there needs to be a moratorium. At one point, I do believe parents should have choice and things of that nature. I'm not here, but as far as a moratorium, I don't think this charter school saturation is healthy for public schools, and also because of the unfair playing field. I served in a charter school and left after 7 months because I was horrified by what I saw internally, and I'll leave it there. But it is not an even playing field, and I saw firsthand schools that were talking about we have a 100% graduation rate, but yet I'm meeting children that were there the year before, maybe the year before that. I saw a subpar supports for special education, and I also saw myself tokenized and told that I would be able to speak with parents. And then when I said, what's our follow-up to speak with these parents and engage them, and we weren't able to engage, and parents were coming to me just like they come in any other school district. They were having some of those same problems, if not deeper. So I have a different view on the charter school piece, and we definitely need to stop the oversaturation, because the analogy respectfully between Whole Foods and Wegmans is I don't think either one is paying for the other, but we are.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. We're going to go to President Elliott.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'd like to also comment on the charter school conversation. And I was like, Commissioner Simmons, in the beginning, I really wanted there to be competition in the sense that the Rochester City School District was not educating its children. And so my position is that our families are moving, are leaving us by choosing our charter schools. And at the time, they didn't care about whatever the charter school was. They just didn't want their children in the Rochester City School District now, right? But now, and I know Joe Klein may comment, but the charter schools is the biggest hustle going. Biggest hustle going. Let me say it one more time for the back row. The charter schools are the biggest hustle going. And I think it was in one of the testimonies that I saw, the net income that they received from charter schools was $150 million. And they could, even in Buffalo, and I'm talking about even back in 2006 or 7, Buffalo alone, the net profit from charter schools was $14 million. This is a hustle. People have found that they can make money, and this is the way they're doing it. And they do not have to have the same kind of regulations that the school district have. If the kids are not performing well, or if they get in any kind of problems there, they send those kids back into the district. You tell me that's an equal education? No, not at all. They are the biggest hustle going. They are the biggest hustle going. They don't perform any better, most of them, than the way we perform. So from that regard, I do believe that we should look at a moratorium, because again, this is about a hustle. This is about people making money and not educating black kids. And I'm not telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know. They don't care about black and brown kids. This is about getting the money. So thank you.
Thank you, President Elliott. I will say that under this topic, there is a lot more conversation that can happen. Even when we speak about the board's responsibility, there are some things that applying to this conversation that the board can take a little bit more responsibility in and authority in. But that's a conversation that we will all have to have, because that also comes with more responsibilities and more roles. So these are our possibilities, and as we have more conversations about it, I will bring up the possibilities, as I have been having meetings with a lot of people and getting a lot of information on that. Commissioner Patterson.
Thank you. Yeah, that our president just spoke, and I respect our president and her comments, and she has the right to make those comments. But at the same time, I'll speak for myself, not for the board, but oftentimes we're not in agreement, and oftentimes I just keep my mouth shut for the sake of being, respectful, number one, but being diplomatic. But we do have some stark differences. And for example, she just mentioned black and brown kids, that they don't care about them. Well, I beg to differ, because I've gone and visited charter schools myself. Why? Because I want to be educated relative to the public and the charter schools. What are they doing that maybe we can bring over here and do differently? So I want to be educated, and I sit down with Joe Klein, a very educated man that knows charter schools. Why? Because I want to be educated in that area and be a part of that dialogue. And what things could we be doing better here that they're doing over there? So I'm always looking to grow. And if we can grow and learn something new every day, that's a good day. So charter schools, for example, all boys schools. We got rid of our all boys schools. So that's an option for some parents that want their young men to learn from other men. So these are the things that I'm asking that we bring back to the district. Why haven't we thought about or talked about bringing back an all boys school? That's very positive for us. Let's see, again, it's just a, domestic process. Or democratic process, excuse me. Now switching over back to, let's see, ELL, all right? Currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have reading teachers anymore. When we talk about teachers, certified teachers, we don't have any Turkish-speaking teachers, to my knowledge, that are certified. African teachers, you know, we have a lot of individuals come from war-torn areas that are from the African descent. Do we have teachers? When I talk about plans, that's what I'm talking about. Do we have a plan for these people that are coming in, you know, to really teach them? So it's nothing against our district. It's nothing against the superintendent. I want to work with the superintendent to make sure that, you know, when we bring these people in, we're able to, you know, educate them and work with them and have a plan to do so. Ukrainians, you know, I know I've seen volunteers in there teaching classes. So again, do we have a plan, you know, for these people that are coming in, you know, from our war-torn areas? We need to at least have a discussion, you know, what we're doing in that area. So that's it. That's all I have to say at this point in time.
I'm going to allow the superintendent to reply to that question, and then we'll get to the rest of our commission.
I do want to say that we have instruction, English language learners instructions, right? If you go to 5, 15, 50 Rochester International Academy, you're going to see students from these communities in their schools and succeeding, right? Bilingual programming we have as well, and those are for mostly Spanish speakers. But yes, we have translators to help with that work, right? Along with certificated E&L teachers to provide language support, like David was referencing earlier. So there are programming, there's translators, there are supports. Yes, some languages are harder to find staff for than others. And I think you had said something that kind of resonated with me that sits with teacher certification, right? We have people that have come to this country to teach and are in substitutes classrooms that were doctors, you know, in other countries, lawyers and stuff. You know, we have to make their teacher certification process easier for some of those so that we can get them certified teaching in front of our kids as well. Right now, they're doing it as subs. So I think that's a place where you could also tie that into teacher certification.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Malloy.
Thank you so much. I won't talk too long, don't worry. I support all of these legislative priorities, especially a moratorium on charter schools. I just want to quickly compliment our student rep, though. Everything you just said really moved me, both as a mom and as a teacher. And we often hear such a negative narrative about our district publicly. And everything that you just said, everything you're fighting for, you are our CSD. You are all the good things happening in our district. And we are proud to not only know you, but we know there are many students in our district doing what you're doing and enjoying the great programming. So thank you for highlighting the fact that we have wonderful programming in this district, and you are helping to not only be a leader, but you're helping to counter that narrative, and you're helping to change narratives. So thank you.
Commissioner Griffin.
Thank you. Sorry. I just want to touch on the charter schools, and I want to touch on a couple of things here. As a parent of two young black and brown boys, I dealt with public-private charter schools, and I'm gonna tell you something. All of our children, no matter where they're at in the city of Rochester, need help. I am just appalled at the fact that, you know, we have to be, to me, we have to be careful of our language and our lingo, because we have parents out there that have children that have been very successful in private, public, and which is RCD and charter schools and urban suburban schools. And I think it's a disadvantage for us to say that some of the charter schools are not working, or some of the RCSD schools are not working. Overall, there's a need for all of our children in this community to be serviced and given an educational foundation that's going to lead them to a pathway to success. That is what our job is to do. That is what our job is here to do. We haven't done that. So I want to just make it very clear for myself and as a parent. when my kids went to charter school, going to a charter school was a choice that was made because of the failure of the district. But in lieu of that, my children were failing at public schools and they failed at private schools. So what I had to do in turn, instead of putting them in Aquinas or somewhere else, I got them helping with the Sylvan Learning Center. So I say that to say this: when a lot of what we're seeing, and if you want to do statistics, I can give you data. What we are finding, what people are finding when they go and they graduate, that they can't even pass the entry level exams into college, to get into college, coming out of all three of those schools, all four types of those schools. That is public, private, charter, and RCSD. So what we need to do as a whole here, as a body, we need to govern our children to make sure no matter where they go to school, that they are very successful. Because we're not here to dictate where our kids go to school. I think we need to be very careful with that. I govern children. We need to govern the children to make sure that they have the tools to be successful. And I think we get away from that. Yeah, money is going out, and I do believe in. Now, let me tell you this: I do believe that we don't need to grow charter. I do believe that we need to govern the ones that are here so that we can give them the kids what they need to be successful. Let's make that clear. I think that people do, like to President Elliott's point, do take money and abuse it. I do get that. But as a parent that struggled with this and cried because of the lack of fundamental skills my children were getting from every school they went to, I have to tell you that there's some good and some bad in everything. And all schools are not like East. All schools don't have all the things that East High School has. So we need to be very careful. All elementary schools don't have everything that the other elementary schools and middle schools have. So we have children that are failing to meet the academic standards. If we really went out and gave people testing and had them read, we would really see where we're at. So I think we need to be very careful how we speak about other schools and how we address it, because we're also attacking parents when we do that. We're attacking the parents' rights to have a choice for their children. That is just my personal opinion. And it's just my personal opinion. I just think that's very touchy for me, because as a parent that struggled with this for years with my kids going to private schools and public school and charter school, I have a problem with it, because I had to still go outside and get outside help to help my children read and comprehend because they left
3
for
minutes,
school.
Commissioner.
They left for school, and it wasn't that wasn't conducive to their learning. So I think that's important. We need to look at that.
Okay, I want to just chime in for a moment because, I truly respect that position. And I think this becomes a real passionate space for us because there's a lot of misinformation that gets said, and we all have to kind of educate ourselves. And one thing I want to be explicitly clear about is that my position as an individual board member is not so much to condemn parents for choosing charter, because I had my son in a private school at one point. And guess what? I was an urban suburban child in Brighton Central Schools from 1st to 8th grade before I came to Wilson High School and graduated. So my point being made is that I truly don't have an issue with parents making choice, because I've made choices myself. I think that we have to be sober about the conversation we're having around the moratorium and what that truly means. And it's not to say that, I think there were some statements that may be broad sweeping. I think there are people I know that have worked at charter schools that do love the children, right? And I know some that do not, and we could probably say that about all of our schools. But as far as the moratorium, which is the conversation at hand, that is where we need to really become more educated around where these dollars are going and how we are approaching this oversaturation of charter schools, not only here in Rochester, but across the United States in some areas. There are some charters that produce some good outcomes, and then I know of some children that have been absorbed in charters that have closed and are reading worse than some of the babies that are in our district now. We're talking about our ELA outcomes. I have a teacher that I speak to explicitly who just absorbed a bunch of children from a charter school that recently closed. These babies are in about the 4th or 5th grade, and they cannot read. And we have people, officials from, I think it was the chamber at one point, and they went to a charter school, and I'm going to stop there, and they actually did the ASVAB, which is really high school level. I used to work with a lot of high school kids. I had staff members that worked at MCC that would take our kids over, and no, some kids couldn't pass the ASVAB, right? Or excuse me, the acuplacer. But the chamber individual provided the ASVAB, a high school standard test, to 43 kids at this particular school. And out of the 43, only 13 of them were able to pass. So my concern is we have this oversaturation of schools that we are paying for, and the outcomes are not any better and sometimes worse than the outcomes we're talking about. So I agree that collectively we need to do that, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we do not govern charter schools.
No,
We are
I
not
understand
commissioners for
that.
charter schools. So
Right.
when we say you want to govern that, you have no say. They have their own board of directors. We govern the city school district. When I signed up and I ran for this, I'm fighting for the kids right here in Rochester. I care about those babies too. They are Rochester, but I govern the Rochester City School District.
So I.
Saying to be accountable. It says here,
Don't cut the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, so that's, I just want to say very quickly, because there was a statement saying that, you know, I want to make it clear, I'm not against charter schools, but I believe that there has been some disparities, some inequalities that this district has been dealing with due to some of the things that are established, whether it's the students, whether it's the charter schools kicking out IEP students, whether it's students who have been constantly suspended, who have been terminated, who have been expelled. When we talk about funding, when we talk about busing, like there's a lot of things and a lot of inequalities that we're dealing with as a district. And so this is not going against charter schools, not saying charter schools are bad, not saying that they're not doing anything. This is just saying that we have to find a balance, and that's all that is. We're gonna end this conversation with our student representative, David,
I have another question, a statement.
and then we'll get to a motion and a vote.
So I think I want to remind the board that this priority is more focused on making our charter schools more accountable, right? Because as much as our board, you know, we have our budget, you know, there's so much stuff that goes into it. There's so much like voice and there's so much regulation. Charter schools don't really have the same thing, right? So like we're basically blindly giving them money, right? Because like even as a parent, right, you don't have a say what goes on inside a charter school. There's a board of directors that does that. Here in the district, you can go to the principal, you can come to here and you know speak your opinion. You don't really have the same voice when it comes to a charter school, right? Charter schools work in their autonomy is much different than ours. But the problem is that we're giving funds, and we transport charter school kids as well, right? There's so much things that go into charter schools, so it's more so just saying that we want to keep them accountable, so that they're also educating their kids properly as well, and also like even like if you want to be a charter school teacher, you don't have to be certified. Like there's just so many things that you know charter schools do that we do differently, and we want to keep them more accountable, especially when we're giving them a lot of money and dollars. So yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, we are on the timeline for this legislative priorities. We did get reached out by from the Big Five, New York State Big Five, asking us to get our legislative priorities together pretty soon. So the hope was to pass the legislative priorities tonight. So can I please get a motion to approve the 2024 legislative priorities? We have a motion from President Elliott and a second from Commissioner Simmons. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Do you want more
opposed?
discussion?
There was no further discussion, right?
Is there no further discussion?
Further discussion, he told me he wanted to.
I was just joking.
I did have further discussion. I just wanted to clear up one thing. I said in my statement that I believe there should be something to stop the growth of charter schools, is what I said. And I also said very clearly that the children that are at a disadvantage throughout the city as well, whether it be public, private, or charter. I said that. That's what I said. I said it need help everywhere. That's what I said. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. All
Okay,
in favor,
thank you very
please say
much.
aye. Any other further discussion? No, please. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Let's move forward. So,
Wait, did you get the vote on that?
I got 5-1 with Commissioner Patterson saying no.
Yeah, right, okay. Just wanted to make sure. And then just, if I could just say that some of us are gonna be going to Albany for the lobby day to lobby with the Big Five. That's gonna be happening at the end of the month, so just wanted to put that on the table.
Absolutely. So I just want to remind you guys, Charisma, if you don't mind pulling up the flyer for our legislative breakfast, I want to remind you guys of our annual legislative breakfast going on March 2nd, which is a Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Our subject and our topic is investing in tomorrow, and our keynote speaker will be Damon Meeks. And with that being said, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? Anybody?
I want to stay.
Second, we got a motion by Commissioner Malloy, a second by Commissioner Simmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes. Great job. This is your first meeting too, right?